You're in the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
With Gene, with Chris, and a return visit from our friend Goggs Mackay, we're back on the Paracast after, shall we say, one of the more interesting episodes of the show. This is one where we got loads and loads of forum messages, but we also got letters, a lot of emails from people, and the reaction is predictably polarized. Let me give you a couple of examples. We have some people who say they hated the show because we had no reason to attack this Blake Cousins. I mean, let the guy talk, or maybe he's not worth the attention. Others saying, yes, that's the best form of the Paracast, where they love the fact that we showed this person no mercy. Now, speaking separately, Chris, have you gotten any personal messages about the show?
You know, I haven't, Jane, but you know, the word attack, you know, I really I take exception to that. I don't for a second think that we were attacking Blake. We were firm. We were very decisive in our comments and in our feelings about him and his site. I did get an interesting, I think, on one of the forum posts on the thread about the show, someone said, you know, I finally got it. I was listening to good journalism. People actually asking follow-up questions, actually not letting the guests slide and really probing and attempting to find out exactly what the man's thinking is. And I think that that's kind of the approach that I felt that we were taking. Sure, we got a little bit forceful. We got a little bit pointed. But I really, Gene, don't think, and Goggs, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. I really don't think we were attacking the man. I think we were really asking hard, probing questions, and when we didn't get the kind of answers we wanted, we kept at it.
Goggs?
The show, there was, as has just been mentioned, there was a lot of feedback. It generated a lot of discussion. The positive feedback was very positive indeed. A couple of people saying it was one of the best, if not the best show they'd heard of the Paracast. I think the positive feedback was harking back to, I think people were thinking, well, yeah, this is what the Paracast is about. This is how the show is different from other shows that cover the paranormal. I think the positive messages outweighed the negative ones, and even the negative ones were, you know, some people had a problem with the kind of style, but I don't think it was any different than Sunday morning political programs where a politician's being evasive and the interviewer is, questioning, hopefully putting them into a corner where they've got to answer. That's what was going on. And I think by the end of the episode, we turned it round a little by, extending the olive branch, offering help or to put Blake in touch with some new people and encouraging him to do more with what we all agree is a good basis for something that could be great. I think it was a great show. I would have, had I not been taking part, I think I would have listened to that to the end and thought, yeah, that's what the Paracast is about.
Were there any questions you would have liked to ask of Blake that you didn't ask?
Yes, and quite simply is, where did he get the name from, third phase of moon, and why does it not have a "the" in the end, third phase of the moon? Or just where does it come from? Probing questions, no, I think we kind of covered what we really wanted to, because what we really wanted to ask him about was, how he does or does not discriminate in his videos, whether he seems to care about that or not. As Chris was saying, is he an entertainer like P.T. Barnum, or is he part of the solution? No, I think we got out of Blake in that interview what we were seeking to do.
Well, one thing here that I noticed very much so is that in the responses we got from our listeners, one person said that he knew somebody who had worked with the Cousins brothers, they're twins, Blake and his brother, in faking a UFO picture, not just taking content from other people, that he was involved in actually faking a photo. Now, I asked for a follow-up. We haven't had one. I don't want to say without any follow-up that we have a definitive answer to that, whether he's faked some of these photos himself or not. it may not matter to him, but that's just one issue that came across. As you know, Chris offered to extend the olive branch to Blake. He offered to try to help him clean up his act, be more discerning about the photos he posted. But therein lies a tale, and the answer may have been predictable, but it was also predictably childish. Chris, maybe detail the correspondence you had with Blake.
Well, again, I need to underscore what Goggs just said about third phase of moon, third phase of moon. I just want to underscore that it is a good idea. He has managed to put together an interesting YouTube channel that is vacuum cleaning up all sorts of footage from around the world. As more people become aware of the channel, more people are attempting to come up with good hoax videos, I'm sure. But also there's that possibility of really stumbling on some real, I think, potentially crucial footage. With the advent of cell phones, the cameras on these phones are getting better. Video technology is becoming more and more affordable. There's more people armed with potential instruments of documentation on real sightings. And if we set aside the vast majority of his videos, which in my estimation are not only hoaxes, some of them are just silly. If we set aside those and we concentrate on the good stuff, I think that it really would serve the ufological community if we could get that footage into somebody's hands. And I did offer to put him in touch with real video analysts and also put it out there for a group of analysts to take a look at some of these images and video clips and try to determine some science. But unfortunately, Blake does not really respond well to criticism or implied or just, perceived, I think. And he had a real difficult time coming from a place of really working as a team player with the ufological community. It's obvious he's a go-it-alone kind of operation with his brother. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if he is, with his knowledge of After Effects and supposed knowledge with Avid, which, of course, is the go-to digital video special effects platform in video and film, for that matter. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if he is behind a good many of these hoaxes, or at least some of them. It wouldn't surprise me in the least. But my attempts at creating a dialogue and offering my help in any way that I can was initially met with some. He kind of ignored it, really, and then he kind of grudgingly said, "Well, yeah, how about this one? Check this out." And he sent along a clip from a guy down in Fort Myers, Florida, which, again, with the YouTube compression, it's very difficult to analyze any videos there. And I said, well, I'd like to see an uncompressed copy of this. And he sent me the link to the guy's own YouTube channel, which, again, was just viewing another piece of compressed video. And when I said, look, please send us along something uncompressed, he went ballistic and called me a troll, and I'm never going to speak to you again. And, he sounded like, a petulant 12-year-old or something.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, well, it's all up on the board.
You got to wonder if Blake is just thinking, he's just thinking, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. In his mind, third phase of moon is working. It's working very well. And maybe he just thinks, he just doesn't need to mess with it because maybe he doesn't really care.
No, he's making too much money to care. In fact, somebody pointed out earlier in the day here on forum.theparacast.com, if you go to the About the Show thread and bank, you'll find this very extensive thread that's almost, I think, up to 200 posts.
It'll be a lot more, by the way, when our listeners get to hear the show. Yeah. We have Gene and Chris and Goggs Mackay. You're in
the Paracast.
Say, neighbors, when your entire team can get together, it's just amazing what they can accomplish. Projects that take weeks, decisions that take days, it's all done right then and there. But gathering everyone together from all those different locations, it can be time-consuming, it can be expensive, It can be plain impossible. That's why we use GoToMeeting with HD Faces. It makes it easy for our entire team to get together online. You see, with GoToMeeting, we share the same screen. We stay on the same page. The built-in HD video conferencing makes the online meetings just like being in the same room. Try GoToMeeting free for 30 days. Don't wait for this special offer. Visit GoToMeeting.com. Click the Try It Free button. Use the promo code PODCAST. Remember, use the promo code PODCAST.
Friends, this is Alex Jones for MidasResources.com. For more than 15 years, I have exclusively used Midas Resources for all my precious metal needs. Whether it's bullion or collectibles you're looking for, Midas Resources is simply the best. I own my gold as a hedge against inflation. This Federal Reserve fiat currency could go the way of the Deutschmark and the Weimar Republic anytime. In these historically dangerous times, it makes sense to physically hold gold and silver. Midas already has some of the best deals in the industry. But if you give them a call and mention the radio special, they will give you a list of the day's super specials. Midas brokers are standing by to answer all your questions at 800-686-2237. They also have a lot of informative free literature explaining the opportunities and risk of holding precious metals. They are ready to answer your questions at 800-686-2237. Again, that's 800-686-2237.
American gardeners and fellow patriots, make the right choice with your money, time, and your family food supply. Choose 100% pure heirloom seeds in the Survival Seed Vault from MyPatriotSupply.com. Why spend more? The Survival Seed Vault from MyPatriotSupply.com is only $37.95 and includes 20 varieties of pure, hardy, easy-to-grow heirloom seeds. Yes, only $37.95. That's 70% less than our competitors. You could buy 3 Survival Seed Vaults for less than one of theirs. The Survival Seed Vault from MyPatriotSupply.com includes detailed planting and seed-saving instructions and ships same day. Plus, all orders over $49 ship free. MyPatriotSupply.com is American-owned by patriots like you, passionate about freedom and preparedness. Call now, 866-229-0927. That's 866-229-0927. Or discover more emergency preparedness items when you order at MyPatriotSupply.com. Choose the original. Choose the Survival Seed Vault at MyPatriotSupply.com.
What do you do when your propane runs out and you don't have a large amount of wood for cooking? That's when you need a Grover rocket stove from StockStorage.com. The Grover rocket stove starts easily with any combustible material like junk mail, small twigs, leaves, weeds, or dry sagebrush. Then just add a small amount of kindling wood and you'll be cooking entire meals in minutes. Grover rocket stoves are made right here in the USA and are built to last a lifetime using heavy-duty thick-gauge steel and are painted with high-temp paint to withstand heat. Go to StockStorage.com and see 3 great Grover rocket stoves, stainless steel, heavy duty, or our original Grover rocket stove for only $135 and get free shipping to the lower 48. For phone orders, call 801-361-6984 or go to StockStorage.com. That's 801-361-6984 or StockStorage.com. The original Grover rocket stove minimal wood use cooking stoves, available exclusively from StockStorage.com.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
On the Paracast with Gene and Chris and Goggs, we're talking about last week's show, which featured Blake Cousins, half of the Cousins Brothers Productions, and they're engaged in putting up a UFO photo channel on YouTube. And somebody in our forums over at forum.theparacast.com in the thread about Blake Cousins did some financial estimates.
Yeah, that's what I was going to point out. And if those estimates are even close to being true and a sense of what his channel is potentially producing in terms of cash flow, the guy's got a real good idea, and he's making some pretty good money at presenting hoax videos with this mock seriousness of them being real, and actually that I think a vast majority of them are fake.
What would really hurt is if if third phase of moon actually turned out to be the outlet for the smoking gun, should it ever happen. Can you imagine the irony?
Oh, please.
Yes.
I mean, the problem is you have so much garbage there that even if the smoking gun was there, it wouldn't be noticed. It would be hiding in plain sight.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a problem, Gene. I think, the observation that 20, out of 20 videos, I mean, this observation was made by one of his talking heads in his video about UFO sightings in Hawaii. They said if 1 out of 20 is real and the others are all red herrings, who's going to notice? And I think that's a point well taken. I think that this is a really interesting net that he's casting out there, but without some sort of analytical process that's well founded and really, I think, professional in its protocols and methodology. I think without that, the real thing could happen, and it might just get tossed out as, oh, well, here comes another fake video from third phase of moon.
Well, if you wanted to obscure the truth, that's one way of doing it. Now, just to give a little bit of background, which is why I even raised the suspicion the third phase of moon is doing the fakery in some cases, is that if you look at the Cousins Brothers' claim to fame before that, it was producing a Star Wars fan movie starring Blake's 3-year-old son or something like that.
His nephew.
His nephew, okay. Regardless, they're into making science fiction. But you find after that, and that happened like 10 years ago, there's nothing more about what Blake Cousins did. Very little more about his work, his content, or anything, just what he did 10 years ago. So maybe this is a last hurrah, because we're not talking about a 20-year-old here. Looking at his background when he graduated high school and everything else, based on the news stories, it's a guy about 40. So they're twins, 2 guys about 40 years of age. And I guess he's trying to find or solve what would be almost a midlife crisis, find something to do. This is his full-time job. If third phase of moon disappears tomorrow, he's out of work.
So you've reminded me of a point I brought up last week when I was, throwing out the question about just in general fake UFO videos. How long does it take to create a good fake video? And if we are thinking that third phase of moon is creating how many could a couple of guys churn out on a weekly basis? I admit I've got no idea how long it would take to film some outside footage and then add in some CGI. I imagine there are ways of incorporating CGI with, bad camera shake, which I would have, certainly in the old days of just VHS camcorders and stuff, you kind of get a feel that a video is probably more authentic if it's not very stable, in terms of the object you're looking at matching up with the motion of the camera. Chris, I'm sure you know more about this than I do.
Yeah.
But what does it take to create these videos? If we were to just choose one at random and think, so could they be churning them out? Or, again, who is?
Well, the easiest ones, obviously, are just anomalous lights in the sky at night. Those are the easiest to produce. Some of these glowing balls that they have going over the ocean, those are fairly simple to produce. What gives them away is the light doesn't shimmer through the atmosphere. And I mentioned this to him on the show last week, that the one particular clip that he shows a light ball flying out below the level of the camera. The camera's on a cliff looking down at the ocean. The light ball does not glimmer. It doesn't shimmer. You can tell that the light is not actually going through a half a mile's worth of atmosphere that's obviously moisture laden, being over the ocean. That would give the light a roiling sort of glittering effect to it, and the light is just static. It doesn't change at all, as if it was coherent light very close to the camera, and that to me is a dead giveaway. And he's so enamored with that particular hoaxed clip that I think he used it 4 or 5 times in his 50-minute piece, which is pretty interesting in and of itself. But But I think that, basically it depends, Goggs, on, how much actual morphing the object does. In other words, if the object is tipping or showing you a different side, if it's revolving, if the object is actually doing motion in and of itself, that makes it more difficult and more time-consuming to produce. Simple lighting effects are fairly easy, and you can really crank them out very, very quickly. And it's the animation type clips, the one of the hokey saucer coming down off the wing of an airliner. That one would take a little time. The one that's in there of the largest UFO ever filmed, that one would take some time. But you'll notice the hoaxed videos that seem to be most impressive are the ones that are the grainiest, that have the least actual video quality to them. And I think part of that's done on purpose to hide flaws in the actual animation or in the actual special effects that are going on. We're in the age of high def video, and I'm seeing a lot of poorly. Just the signal to noise ratio in a lot of the footage in and of itself is suspicious. So, it totally depends, Goggs, on how much animation is there and how much actual motion that the object is doing on its own in relation to whatever scene it's being displayed in.
Kind of wonder, Chris, whether they should just go back to throwing models up in the air and shooting them. If we go back to one of the hoaxes that Jim Moseley and Gray Barker pulled back, I guess, in the 1960s or 1970s, this Lost Creek UFO. That's how it was done, with a physical object, regular film and camera. Of course, it didn't look real, didn't look any more real. But you think here with all these stupid effects and throwing lights into a picture, that would be a better way to do it. And by the way, we should point out that if you want to get in touch with us over here at the Paracast, we have the channel over on Twitter called the Paracast. You can find us on Facebook as the Paracast. We have two areas there, or go to forum.theparacast.com and post your messages. With Gene and Chris and Goggs, with the outcome of last week's show, you're in
the Paracast.
America's #1 source for independent talk radio for over a decade. We are the GCN Radio Network. Attack of the Rockoids has been well received by critics and readers alike. It's a thrill-a-minute story you'll never forget. A former U.S. military intelligence officer is haunted by intense dreams about a beautiful woman pleading for his help after a terrible battle in outer space. But the dreams turn out to be true and thrust him into a telepathic love affair with a woman whose faraway planet is intent on destroying the Earth. And now the gripping tale continues in The Coming of the Protectors. It's the second book of the Rockoids trilogy, a galaxy-spanning adventure that pits our hapless heroes against powerful, fanatical enemies that threaten the lives of freedom-loving beings everywhere. Attack of the Rockoids and The Coming of the Protectors. Classic science fiction at its best. Available now. For more details, visit rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com.
Bills in front of Congress right now could take away your right to keep and bear arms. If Obama has his way, all guns will be either banned, restricted, or confiscated, possibly by executive order. The best way to keep your guns is to hide them. What Obama can't find, Obama can't take away. You can protect your guns from any threat. Download our special report, How to Hide Your Guns, at GoHideYourGuns.com. Learn how to hide your guns while keeping them readily available. Get the report now before they make us take it down. On the web at GoHideYourGuns.com. Sergeant Dave Scott, Army Search and Rescue veteran, wants you to hear this urgent message. All emergencies have casualties, but in America, most casualties from storms like Katrina and Sandy only happen because good people were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Don't let that happen to you. Visit yourbugoutplan.com on the web. Watch a free video presentation of the skills you need to be long gone before any disaster can touch you. You owe it to yourself and to your family to watch this. Head to yourbugoutplan.com on the web right now, yourbugoutplan.com.
ceramic body armor is rated to stop 6 hits. But what about the 7th? Unlike ceramic or Kevlar, Infidel body armor is proven to take hit after hit, and it just won't quit. Reasonably priced and designed for the smart civilian prepper, Infidel stops hundreds of hits from small arms to high-powered rifles. That means safety and peace of mind. Buy yours at InfidelBodyArmor.com. Spelled INFIDEL bodyarmor.com. Infidel Body Armor just won't quit.
We the people grow cotton, weave fabric, engrave ink, embed strips and fibers to protect from counterfeit and carting to a private bank, having it lent back at interest, forcing taxes to service debt. This capitalism, or was Jefferson correct when stating a central bank issuing the public currency is a greater menace to the liberties of the people than a standing army? Hi, Ted Anderson. I'm placing a free silver dollar in a book that explains our monetary system. Call for your copy, 800-686-2237. It's time to understand the system. Call 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
Hello?
Congratulations.
For what?
For losing all that weight. How'd you do it so fast?
ASAP.
ASAP what? What's that mean?
Are you ready to get as skinny as possible, as soon as possible, as simple as possible, and as sexy as possible?
I'm listening.
Then get with the ASAP program. It's real and it works. No smooth talk, no slick advertising, and no exaggerated claims of success.
I've got to know more.
Welcome to ASAP, as slim as possible. Whether you have 10, 20, or 50 pounds to lose, ASAP is your weight loss answer. ASAP targets the abnormal fat reserves and makes them available to be burned as fuel and contains no caffeine or hormones. Order ASAP at wholesale prices or join the team to share the business with others. Visit GCNteam.com or call 877-878-4203. GCNteam.com or call 877-878-4203. Lose weight and look great with ASAP, as slim as possible.
Hi, this is Don Ecker, and you are tuned into the Paracast. Let me tell you what, you're going to hear stuff here that you probably won't hear anywhere else. Hear that, George Snorri?
With Gene and Chris and Goggs Mackay joining us for, shall we say, the Monday morning quarterback edition, but we're also talking about the state of UFO research, that if a popular channel showing UFO photos is mostly showing fakes, what does it bring out on the part of people? I mean, if there was no channel like that online, would people be inclined to make as many fake videos as they do, guys?
Yeah, what about the fact that even Blake admits himself, the number of thumbs down his videos are getting? So perhaps a lot of the viewers are a bit more discerning than maybe we've been giving them credit for, as in assuming anyone who subscribes to Third Phase of Moon doesn't really have a clue. But perhaps there are many subscribers who are just looking for the odd nugget, but they are willing to make it known that they think that's a load of bull. So you've got to wonder what the demographic of his viewership, his subscribers, is.
Well, the thing would be also, if you're running a site like that, you'd want to know who your users are. Because if you're trying to pander to them, if you don't give them what they want, you're not going to make the money. And we were talking briefly about this before, but he could earn a really high salary from that place. Yeah, absolutely. And, another thing that I've noticed in the videos is quite a bit of bad acting. Oftentimes a hoax video it doesn't matter how well it's done. If there's people talking in the frame or acting in the frame, oftentimes that's the dead giveaway. Just by the way people who are actually doing the supposed filming and people around them are responding. This Joe, I forget his last name, the guy from Fort Myers, has some pretty interesting footage. I think he's getting real stuff down there. I don't believe it's extra mundane. It's right by I think an Air Force base or a Navy field down there. And I think that there's some interesting stuff being put up by the military that's all lit up like a Christmas tree that he may be inadvertently filming. And because it doesn't conform to your conventional lighting arrays on planes, it does appear unusual. I could tell by the reaction of people around the cameraman that they were seeing a real object out over the Gulf there.
And that oftentimes is the dead giveaway, I think. It doesn't matter how good the special effects are or how impressive the video is. If the people that are supposedly experiencing the thing real time are bad actors, you're going to be able to tell.
Yeah, forced acting, comes out really easy. You just get a sense that, somebody's... It's like, I don't know if you have in America, but in the UK we've got a show called You've Been Framed. It's just where basically the viewers send in any little funny video clips they may have made around the home of animals, kids or whatever, and they were getting paid £250 per clip, regardless of how long it is. And that just made so many people send in these fake videos. Well, fake in that they were forcing accidents to happen and stuff, and it's so plainly obvious when it's happening, but they still pay the 250 quid. So, but yeah, I take Chris's point that I can see that you know when people are acting, because most people aren't actors.
If you're showing people just reacting naturally to something, that comes through.
Yeah.
Well, another thing is, I think a lot of these people, obviously I think there's people trying to pull stuff over on Blake and the site and get their 30 seconds of fame up on his site and see how many people fall for it. But I think there are some well-intentioned, well-meaning people out there that are genuinely attempting to capture the extraordinary and the extra mundane. And it's those people that if we could somehow come up with a way to, let's say, do a Paracast YouTube channel and have it be instructional as well as informational and putting out videos that we feel pass muster. It's one thing to shoot a video, and it doesn't a good video. It's another thing to actually gather witnesses' names, report the sighting to Peter Davenport, the National UFO Reporting Center, or to the local MUFON section director. It's the follow-up work. It's the corroborative witness testimony. It's filing the reports. It's calling the airport, calling the military bases, getting people to go on the record and say, no, that's not us. That's how good investigations are handled. And the average person who's out there with a video camera looking for UFOs, I don't think really has the education. They don't have the understanding that there's people out there willing to help them, and that there's a actual proper way to document these types of sightings. And as the technology gets more, less expensive and we get more quality in the technology, we're going to be seeing more and more, I think, quality videos coming out. And it's that understanding, that educational process that the person has undergone that allows them to properly document and do a, ad hoc on the spot investigation, gathering names, gathering witnesses, making sure other people who are taking pictures that their visual evidence is being put into a package. This is the kind of thing that I was trying to get Blake, lead him to that place of actually doing good field work and doing good investigative work and educating his vast viewership. And unfortunately, he just called me a troll and says, "I'm never going to talk to you again."
Am I right in thinking that like MUFON, for people, if they become members of MUFON, do they provide some modicum of training about investigation?
Absolutely.
Investigating? Yeah. So, and do you have to join MUFON as an investigator, or where can the average person go to pick up information about hints and tips about, you need to ask this person, find out the weather from these people and how to rule out this and that? Because, I don't know for a fact, but I never see UFOs.
Well, I'll tell you, let me give you the information about MUFON membership, okay? Now, MUFON has a hard copy journal, and they've also got an electronic version. So if you want to save money, the cheapest version is the electronic journal. It's $35 a year, $30 for those 65 or older or 18 and younger. Okay, but there is a separate investigator's manual, which appears to be $35 a copy, and I have to check that. And that teaches you how to supposedly do investigations of UFO sightings. Now, it doesn't mean you're getting a degree in UFO research. But at least it's something which sets down ways to do your stuff. It's not something we just make it up. It is something that has solid information in it.
Yeah, even just as an aid memoir, there are many professions and jobs where people have to refer to manuals. Pilots, airline pilots, they know so much about flying on their aircraft, but there are still times when they have to pull out an actual book or something and read checklists and instructions, and there's nothing wrong with having something to, remind you, point you in the right direction. I'm all for it. If I actually lived in a place with clearer skies and I thought I could, spot something, I would certainly be interested in doing it correctly.
Let me just correct that, by the way. I just looked up on MUFON. For non-members, the MUFON Field Investigators Manual is $70 a copy. And I have to look up what you get. It's $50 a copy for members. Okay.
And how much? And do you have to pay for membership?
The membership, like I said, starts at $35 or $30 for seniors or those under 18. It doesn't tell me precisely how big this book is. $70 is a lot.
Well,
for
I have
book.
a copy of it. It's fairly sizable. I'd say it's 150 pages, 200 pages. I haven't dug it out in a while. I also helped write a investigator's manual for Skywatch International back in the mid-'90s.
We'll have to ask you about that in a moment as to whether it's still even available. Goggs Mackay joining us with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast. Are you tired of searching for great talk radio?
Something more important.
Search no more. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Is there a secret UFO agenda? Do strange creatures from the darkest corners of the mind roam the earth? Is there evidence for mind control, time travel, or devious government conspiracies? Find out the inside scoop on the latest conspiracies, paranormal activity, and Fortean phenomena when you subscribe to Tim Beckley's Conspiracy Journal. It's jam-packed with stories, special book and DVD promotions, and the best news, it's absolutely free, sent right to your mailbox. Plus, a bonus free email newsletter sent out every Friday. Simply send an email with your name and address to Mr. UFO at webtv.net. That's Mr. UFO at webtv.net. Find out what they don't want you to know.
Are you still a traditional smoker? Now experience a new lifestyle and try vaping with e-cigarettes by LeSig. Imagine no ashes, stains, nasty smell, or coughing and hacking. With LeSig e-cigarettes' revolutionary microelectronic technology, rechargeable battery, and unique replaceable cartridge, you'll get all the benefits and satisfaction of smoking without the hazards. Choose your taste from a wide variety of our new American-made vape-free e-liquids at LeSig.com. And LeSig smokes the competition by serving thousands of worldwide customers with real people customer service, fast, free, same-day shipping, and a 30-day warranty and satisfaction guarantee. So are you ready for a new vaping lifestyle? Then call 870-518-4307. That's 870-518-4307. Or visit LeSig.com, spelled LECIG.com. LeSig e-cigarettes for today's modern smoker.
Hey there, my name is Frank Bates. Do you know the number one most valuable item in a crisis? Some people think the answer is gold. Others think it's a gun. But the correct answer will shock you. I just created a free video at crisis123.com that reveals a surprising item that is more valuable than gold in a crisis. 97% of Americans don't have this one critical item. In fact, they haven't even given it a thought. And the sad truth is that you may not survive without it when a real crisis hits and a starving mob is right outside your door. What I have to tell you could literally make the difference between life and death for you and your family. Watch my video at crisis123.com to discover the number one most valuable item in a crisis. You'll be shocked. See the controversial video that thousands of other smart patriots have already seen in the last 3 months. Go watch my video now at crisis123.com before they force me to shut it down. Again, that's crisis123.com.
Virtually anyone could be tracking you right now through your cell phone. The fact is, anyone can track your calls, your text, emails, your every movement, but only if they can detect a signal.
That's the new warning from the American Civil Liberties Union. It's just released the results of an investigation that found law enforcement agencies across the country track personal cell phones on a regular basis as a form of surveillance.
That's why you need Block It Pocket. Block It Pocket is a standard or custom designed cloth pocket infused with pure silver that creates a complete Faraday enclosure for any mobile device. With Block It Pocket, all incoming and outgoing signals are blocked, including harmful radiation, and your device cannot be hacked or tracked by anyone. Handmade in the USA, Block It Pocket costs less than $30 and ships free to the lower 48. Call 888-315-9618 or click Block It Pocket, spelled BLOCKITPOCKET.com. Block It Pocket, enhancing health and privacy.
This is Kurt Sutherland, the author of UFO Mysteries, and you're listening to the Paracast.
Goggs Mackay is joining us once again with a much better mic this week with Gene and Chris in the Paracast, the Monday morning quarterback edition on a Sunday. And we were talking about how to become a UFO investigator, whether there are instruction manuals. And MUFON has one for $70 or $50 to members. Chris wrote one in the 90s, or you were co-author of one. What's involved in that? Can we get a copy?
I do have a copy, Gene. I need to go through my files and find it. When I moved, I kind of boxed up a lot of my sort of dead files and stuff, and I think it may be in there. Bill Hamilton and I were tasked by the Jim Hickman, the head of Skywatch International, and back in, I think, 98, if I remember correctly, to come up with a field investigator's manual. It's similar to the MUFON model. However, I put in there a lot of follow-up type questions and qualification type subjects that you don't find in the MUFON manual. This is more for determining how particular extraordinary events impact people's thinking process. It gets into psychological issues that may be raised by a life-changing event like a close proximity UFO sighting, that sort of thing. But basically, it's the same thing. It's a little bit more streamlined and I think more up-to-date than the MUFON model. If you look at the MUFON section, they're still talking about film cameras, SLR cameras, and improper exposures and all this kind of thing, which don't necessarily apply as much in today's digital world. But again, I would make this available. I will dig it out. I will make it available. Skywatch International is now defunct, so I don't think Bill Hamilton would have any problem with me making this available to the public. I think we need to get people up to speed, educated, and, we need it to be automatic for people. They don't have to, think twice about how to actually properly investigate something. It's real simple. Get people's name, number, the date and time of the event, the location, the duration of the event, a description of the event, and any corroborating witnesses. And make sure you file reports so that you have the actual experience or event documented elsewhere besides your own database. And it's pretty simple and basic. Everything gets more and more, targeted and focused down to the minutia from that level forward.
Is it just the same as the method you would follow for when you were investigating cattle mutilations or unexplained livestock deaths?
Well, apples and oranges. Yeah, the methodology would be very similar. Obviously, you're dealing with thousands of pounds of physical evidence, unlike in a UFO sighting. So there are some very big differences, obviously. In terms of the basic documentation of the event, getting people's names, their phone numbers, descriptions, location, in the case of UFO sightings, the duration of the event, it's simple to figure out how to determine azimuth, for instance. Occasionally in daylight sightings, it's fairly easy to determine size. Based on triangulation, which I'm trying to do up in the San Luis Valley, if you have more than one camera going and you have a time code involved, you're able to determine speed and size as well. So, again, it's a process. It's an educational thing. People have to be willing to go a little bit further, go that little extra yard to properly document something. But because who knows, if somebody happens to stumble on an incredible event and get it documented, and, in the best of all realms, somebody else is there and they're able to run over and get additional footage, you can really determine a lot. And especially if the person is up to speed and is educated enough to do the proper follow-up.
Well, one of the things, of course, with that particular document is probably what we'll have you do is digitize it, format it, make it available as a downloadable file.
Right.
From the Paracast, so anybody can get this. They don't have to pay $70 for it. What we could also do is make it donationware. You know what that is? Where you send a voluntary donation of whatever amount, and then we can use that to fund whatever we're going to do, because if we set up a YouTube channel, we're going to need a little bit of help to get things going.
Exactly.
So that might be nice. Not $70, but donationware, okay, where you voluntarily submit whatever amount of money. It could be $1, it could be $1 million, whatever it is, $1 even. We will provide a copy of this publication. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to take a little while. Chris has to unearth a copy. We have to digitize it. He will want to update it some for more modern presentation.
Correct.
Because one of the things that's really different now about the world is that most films, most photos are taken with the cameras you have on a smartphone. And some of them are really crummy. Some of them are really good. So if you get really the high-end phones like an iPhone 5 or Samsung Galaxy S4 or the new phone from HTC, the HTC One, you can come up with pretty good pictures without having to be a photographer.
What about the problem about... I mentioned this in the forum, Gene, and you had replied. I was thinking, would it be better for ufology, not necessarily in practice, but that if people were using old style, like 35mm film and like analog video, in terms of with digital, you can mess about with it easy, and for kind of trying not to allow hoaxes to get through. Like if I was to see a UFO on a reasonably clear day or something, and I've got a Samsung Galaxy, I could take a photo with that, or I could take a photo with an old style camera with the color film in it. Which one of those is going to, be better evidence for somebody who maybe doesn't believe in UFOs?
There's no question about which is better. Obviously, the analog version would be better. What you could do with photos of an object, or let's say exposing film, 60mm film, Super 8 film, is you could just keep it in the camera and not allow it to be processed until the actual processing is documented and certified. It's much, much better, and it's a lot more difficult to hoax things with an analog medium like that. So there's no question in my mind where my druthers would be. Ray Stanford allegedly has 49 films of UFOs, and we're talking 8mm, Super 8, and 16mm films, not video. That sort of evidence is much, much, I think, better and harder to hoax.
What was it Bruce Maccabee and the Gulf Breeze sightings? Was it him that did this like twin parallax camera thing, he said, or was it the Ed Winters guy?
Ed Walters,
sorry.
Yeah, I think it was Ed Walters, but the whole, it was interesting that the one book that Blake should mention was the Gulf Breeze incident. And I think several people have done some very, very intense work on getting to the bottom of some of Ed Walters' photographs, and there's some glaring problems with a number of them, and we may be seeing a very, very elaborate hoax. Now, Bruce Maccabee allegedly was paid $10,000, I heard even more, to sign off on the original book. So, you kind of have to wonder whether Maccabee was kind of somehow involved in turning a blind eye to Walter's potential and alleged shenanigans. The famous shot of him shooting at the object hovering over the road, the one thing that comes across on that is that there's no reflection of the object on the hood in the foreground, which to me, there would be a reflection there. So there's things that are wrong with that.
By the way, I was looking as we were talking here about the possibility of getting, say, a Super 8 camcorder. Okay, and you can buy them, and I found them online for as cheap as maybe $50 or $100 fairly decent ones like a Sony Steady Shop Handycam. A Steady Shop Handycam.
What about the film?
The film is available. You just have to kind of look for it, but the film is available. If you look online, you'll see Super 8 film. And the place I just checked, it's right now on eBay. They're talking about a Super 8 Kodachrome cartridge, $11. I don't know how many minutes of film footage that makes. But the point is that the older technologies are available. We're not talking about buying 35 millimeter cameras. Okay, so we're talking about Super 8 is what we're talking about. Okay? Super 8 is the analog format, which has real Kodachrome film. And that's something, if you looked online or went to eBay, you could probably find a camcorder for a very affordable price. I think perhaps the most troublesome issue, of course, would be getting the film for it, because any film you find now pretty much has been sitting around for a few years. So that kind of damages the quality, to put it mildly, because film had an expiration date. Digital files do not have an expiration date, and we're not going into things like digital rot. But I think most people, it's the same thing. If you have an opportunity to take a picture, you use the camera you have. And most people will have a smartphone. And the better smartphones, or the more modern smartphones, will have decent cameras, and therefore that's what they're going to use. They're not going to use analog. A dedicated investigator might, but who's to know you're going to see something? We're going to see this. We have Chris and Gene with Goggs Mackay. You're in
the Paracast.
The GCN Radio Network, providing the world with hard-hitting talk radio. GCN. Great talk radio starts here.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. If you'd like to listen to GCN programs on the go, I have great news. GCN has created a Droid and iPhone application, and it's free. Just as easy as going to GCNlive.com, click on the banner, and download. Before you know it, you'll be listening to your favorite hard-hitting GCN shows, live or on demand, right on your Droid or iPhone, 24/7 and on the go. So download the Droid and iPhone app free by clicking on the banner at GCNlive.com. Thanks again for listening to GCNlive.com. Again, that's GCNlive.com. Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold IRAs? They've been available since 1986, yet the financial industry won't recognize the value of gold for your retirement. Gold has outperformed paper investments, yet no word about IRAs. If you would like to have gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low returns. Call 800-686-2237. Secure your future and call 1-800-686-2237.
We've lived in this neighborhood for years. We have an alarm system, and all of our doors have deadbolts. They kicked in our door, and we're in and out of our house in about 5 minutes. The police arrived in about 20 minutes, but they were long gone with our TV, jewelry, and my guns. I kept thinking, what if my family had been home? The police officer said that more than 85% of break-ins are through a door, and that deadbolts alone don't stop intruders. The officer told me to go to EasyArmor.net if we wanted something that would actually stop an intruder. Easy Armor reinforces all of the weak points on your doors and is guaranteed to prevent kick-ins. I was surprised at how little Easy Armor costs, and I installed Easy Armor in about 30 minutes.
Visit EasyArmor.net. That's the letters EasyArmor.net. Or call 888-58-ARMOR. That's 888-582-7667. EasyArmor.net. Ultimate door security made easy.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
On the Paracast with Gene and Chris and Goggs Mackay, we're talking now about doing real UFO research about ways to actually take photos or movies of UFOs. But once again, this is the once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. And even if you armed yourself with the Super 8 camcorder, for example, and you have real film, and we're talking about something that's technology is, 30 years old? You get the film.
Older than that.
Yeah, you get the film. You get the camcorder. You're all set with it. But the real question is, how often is that going to happen? Are you going to be lucky enough to take that shot and to be there when it happens? If you're an investigator, it's part of your arsenal. But most photos are not made by professional investigators.
Yeah, I suppose we're talking about the difference between, just a member of the public, chance encounter, pulls out whatever camera's available, but then you've got people who, stay up all night and go on sky watches with the intention of hopefully capturing something. And I suppose it's probably these people that I would hope would maybe think about analog film in their arsenal, as you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And you have people like Ed Grimley who goes out with night vision equipment and gets some pretty intriguing images with night vision. It's more difficult to hoax night vision footage than it is to, hoax just regular, let's say, video cam footage. And that's another thing, too, that I'd like to see more of is from infrared up to second generation, third generation night vision. That kind of footage it could be very valuable and could be very very worthwhile to get and analyze. So I don't see much night vision. In fact, I don't think I've seen any night vision clips on Blake's site.
No, have you tried it yourself, Chris? And also, I'm sure you've seen the same videos I have. There's a couple of interesting videos, a bit like the Mexican Air Force one, where you actually have someone who set up two cameras, a standard one and an infrared one. And sometimes an object appears only in infrared. And I don't know if that is a real video or not, or a hoax, but I found that idea interesting. And then obviously night vision is image intensifying, but those cameras I was looking at them online, for the whatever Mark 3 or 4 or whatever they're called, you're talking several $1,000s. But I would love to go on a night sky watch with Ed Grimsley. George Noory tried it, and apparently he managed to see something interesting on that first time.
Allegedly.
Yes, allegedly, of course.
Yeah, it's like the people who do the reality shows. They go out to hunt ghosts and almost invariably come back with something.
Yeah, well, reality shows, that's just another matter altogether, is it? They've got to get something for each episode, and they make the biggest thing out of the smallest little noise. If you're going to go in an old building, at night when the temperature's cooling down, it's going to make noises. There's going to be animals, maybe rats scurrying about and stuff. And sure, if you're down in some sort of cellar that's got a reputation as being haunted or something, you probably are going to get genuinely scared. But whether that means anything was actually going on, you just know that 99.9% of the time on every single one of these ghost hunter shows, we have our own ones here in the UK, just like, separate from the American ones. And I've watched them just because I'm interested in the paranormal, not because I think they're good shows. And I've seen plenty good, James Fox reactions of people genuinely being scared, but not because I don't think it was because they actually encountered everything. When it comes to that kind of evidence, I think one of the kind of creepiest things I've ever seen was Barry Taff in the Entity case, where there's a cameraman goes up in up in the loft. Well, he claims that basically something wrapped something round his neck and kind of hung him up on a nail. And you see the guy coming out. If that's acting, it's Oscar stuff. But that's the only time I've ever really seen something on video, as it were, that kind of looks like something really was going on there. All these reality shows, I've never seen anything even remotely compelling. But they've got so many episodes just filled with the same dross week to week. Rant over.
It's enough to put you to sleep. I don't watch reality shows. And the reason I don't watch is because of the fact that they're staging it. It doesn't mean there's no real things going on there. There aren't paranormal events. But you just know that the chances of actually seeing something predictably is about, 1/10 of 1,000th of 1%? So how come the crew each week see something?
Yeah.
Well, it depends, too, on the site. Some sites, I think the odds improve dramatically. I got some footage in the basement of the Sally House that has yet to be broadcast or made available. It was the real thing. I could vouch for it, and I had my back to what I was filming, people reacting to something that was behind me, and it took every ounce of my of my professionalism and concentration not to whip around and start filming what they were looking at. Just getting their reaction shots of this, whatever it was coming up, this energy form that I could feel behind me that was coming up. And filming close-ups of their reaction to it. There's no way that the three of them could have, again, like Goggs said, it would be Oscar-winning performances if they were acting. And I felt it too. And if the psychic who I was filming hadn't said, "We need to leave right now," if she hadn't said it at that second, I would have bolted out of there. So I can't wait to get this finally produced and on out there for people to check out.
Was that around the same time when you said that there was one time you had a high-quality camera and there was an image in the mirror of the corridor or something behind you?
No, that was last year. That was the only ghost I've ever seen, or whatever it was. It was, I guess, technically it was more of a shadow person. No, that was a 3D, a $22,000 3D camera. If that had initialized the actual footage, that probably would have been the very first 3D footage of a ghost.
So I just put on my glasses, turn on the 3D set, and I'd see something.
Well, whatever it was, it leaned out and checked me out from behind, and the only reason why I knew it was there was because I was looking in a big, huge mirror at the end of the hallway at myself walking towards the mirror, and I saw it lean out behind me. And I was so excited. You have no idea. I was jumping up and down.
And you've just made me think of something else. The only kind of paranormal experience I know I've had, it seems paranormal to me, I was about 12, 13 or something, literally 150 yards round the corner in an adjacent street to the one I lived. But basically myself and a friend, so, I've got the corroboration of another guy there, and we saw, I'll call it now a full-body apparition, but what we thought was, it was at night, it was dark, but next to street lights and stuff, we saw an old woman, and we were so convinced that she was, out of place, and that where she was, we knew everyone who lived around, and if there had been an old woman there at that time of night, she must have been lost or something. So she was only 20 yards away or so. And we kept her in view the whole time, and we were doing the kind of, good-spirited thing. We were going to go round, approach her, and ask her why she was there, because she was actually on the property of a friend, and I knew she wasn't a relation or anything. Anyway, and this little lane just went into a complete dead end, no escape. And this woman that we saw walked towards that, and as we rounded the little wall, was only 4.5 feet high or something, and went round, she was nowhere to be seen. It wasn't until we couldn't find her that we even thought there was anything up. At no point did we think when we were seeing her that this could be an apparition or anything. But there's no trapdoors there. There is a wall at the end, but it's very high, and the figure of the person we saw, unless she was a very fit gymnast old woman, there's no chance she could have escaped. And we're talking about she was only out of view for a second and a half. So there was no being scared or anything. It was only afterwards we're thinking, what just happened? And we, at that age, 12, 13, we didn't have the knowledge or of anything to really even think about it in any depth. And I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't think about that for a long time, but the two of us saw it. That is one thing that really made me, believe that these things may happen. I don't know if it's...
Attack of the Rockoids has been well received by critics and readers alike. It's a thrill-a-minute story you'll never forget. A former U.S. military intelligence officer is haunted by intense dreams about a beautiful woman pleading for his help after a terrible battle in outer space. But the dreams turn out to be true and thrust him into a telepathic love affair with a woman whose faraway planet is intent on destroying the Earth. And now the gripping tale continues in The Coming of the Protectors. It's the second book of the Rockoids trilogy, a galaxy-spanning adventure that pits our hapless heroes against powerful, fanatical enemies that threaten the lives of freedom-loving beings everywhere. Attack of the Rockoids, and The Coming of the Protectors. Classic science fiction at its best, available now. For more details, visit rockoids.com. That's ROCKOIDS.com.
Hi, this is Gary Cooper with Midas Resources Gold and Silver. Don't be surprised when the global elite confiscates money from your bank account one day. They have already very clearly telling you that they're going to do it. With what just happened in Cyprus serving as a blueprint for future bank bailouts, if you are concerned about keeping your money, why not consider storing your wealth in gold and silver? Call me, Gary Cooper, at 1-800-686-2237, extension 130. Together we'll discuss your options of buying gold and silver. Again, the global elite have plans for your money, and it doesn't include you. So call me, Gary Cooper, at 1-800-686-2237, extension 130. And I will send you a booklet with 10 reasons why gold and silver could be right for you. Again, don't get caught with money in your account when the next bank bailout hits. Call me, Gary Cooper, at 1-800-686-2237, extension 130.
Got a simple question for you. Can you sell? Yes? Okay. Can you sell the intangible? If yes, and you'd like to work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, with no overtime, no weekends, if you're passionate about not closing sales, but about opening relationships, if you truly have a desire to serve global clients who need your advertising expertise, and you're local to the Twin Cities and Burnsville, are hardworking, self-driven, with experience in sales, marketing, or advertising, are personable and a whiz on the phone, GCN wants to talk with you right now. GCN, the Genesis Communications Network, is one of the largest independent talk radio networks in the world, and we're hiring right now. We offer benefits and an excellent commission structure. Experience preferred, but we'll train the right person. Is that you? Submit your resume today to advertise@gcnlive.com. Again, that's advertise@gcnlive.com. Come work with the Genesis Communications Network, an equal opportunity employer.
To have a fighting chance against cold and flu bugs, get the world's best garlic extract, Allison Plus C. Fight viruses, bacteria, and fungi with Allison Plus C. Scientifically proven in double-blind studies using low doses to greatly reduce the number, severity, and duration of common colds. Allison Plus C contains 300 milligrams of stabilized allicin, the active ingredient in crushed garlic. Studies show Allison Plus C is effective against MRSA, bacterial, fungal, and viral infections. One tablet of Allison Plus C has the equivalent of 40 cloves of garlic. Allison Plus C supports your body's resistance to all types of conditions and can help lower high blood pressure and high cholesterol. So boost your body's resistance to infection with nature's best garlic extract. Allison Plus C. To order, call 855-ALLISON. That's 855-255-4246. Or go to AllisonPlus.com. Spelled ALLICIN plus.com. Get Allison Plus C from Affinity Health Products.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
With Gene and Chris and Goggs Mackay, Goggs is telling us a bit about his background in paranormal investigations, how he became involved, how he became interested in the subjects. You were talking about a magazine?
Yeah, there was this weekly magazine, as I said, a short run, and it was called The Unexplained. So, it would cover things like, life after death, UFOs, the usual stuff. I would be very surprised if Nick Redfern hadn't gotten into this as well, judging by his age and stuff. But on this one, it once had a free, how like old vinyl records, and, I'm old enough to have bought vinyl. I'm sure younger listeners may not have. But anyway, sometimes you used to get free singles, a pop track or so with some magazine, but the vinyl would just be this very, very thin, floppy record. It didn't even always perform very well on a round table. But anyway, this one, free issue, it had what it was calling Sounds from Beyond the Grave. I'm not entirely sure of how they were supposed to have recorded it or anything, but whatever was on that was really creepy, even at a young age. And I remember just around that age when this magazine was coming out, I implored my parents to give me money to buy this, and I bought all of them. And I was just like, another issue was about spontaneous human combustion. It's got that classic photo of some old woman's chair, and there's just ashes and everything, and a leg which is pretty much intact up to a point. So around the time of that sighting, I think I was starting to get an interest into the paranormal in general, but I think it was a bit later that I kind of took more an interest in UFOs. And me personally, I know why I am interested in UFOs, and it's nothing to do about Space Brothers or whatever. For me, if UFOs are real, they are proof positive that maybe one day us humans will be able to travel the galaxy, a la Star Trek, and travel at fantastic speeds, and who knows, maybe even have things like transporters. But for me, it's about proving that one day our technology might be as cool as what they are displaying, if indeed they are there. That's why I'm into UFOs.
It's about what's out there and maybe finding the answer to the age-old question, are we alone in the universe? That paraphrases the quote from the movie trailer for Man of Steel, the new Superman reboot. And a large part, this story is about first contact. It's about an alien coming here and having to cope with our world. He's an orphaned alien who is humanoid but is not human. But that is the big thing about that story that makes it out of the comic book range. How do we deal with evidence of real contact? And now, of course, we have all the stuff that's going on where we're hearing more and more about Earth-like planets. Does that, for example, provide some kind of gradual disclosure? You never know. Now, let me get back a bit to taking good photos of UFOs or movies. Chris, since we've already broached the subject about training manuals and stuff, would you give a few hints to people if you see something really strange in the sky, daytime or nighttime, and you got the camcorder, whether it's a smartphone or something else, what do you do? How do you capture that image so it survives a Blake Cousins YouTube site?
Well, the first thing I would suggest is trying to get into a position where you can be as steady and sure-handed as possible, either putting your elbows down on the hood of a car and creating as close to a tripod configuration as possible. Obviously, the best of all scenarios is to actually have a tripod handy. And oftentimes when I do sky watches, I'll walk around with a camera or a video camera on a tripod. I'll just have it there as part of the process. Getting as steady a position to film is most important. If you're standing there with the camera out in front of you, it's going to be really difficult, especially if you zoom in on an object. The more you push your zoom into an object, the more exaggerated any sort of movement is going to become. And oftentimes the problem with amateur videos of objects, I'm assuming that everyone assumes a real object, not a hoaxed one, but the hardest thing to do is to get a good close-up zoom of the object and be steady at the same time. It's almost impossible to get good pushed-in handheld footage. The other thing to always remember is turn off your autofocus. There's so many videos out there where people are fooled into thinking they're videotaping this ball of light, and when in actuality what they're doing is filming the out of focus quality of that particular light, which is much smaller and much more condensed normally. And take off any sort of auto focus function. Also, a lot of cameras nowadays have optical and digital zoom. Never go into digital zoom. Oftentimes what will happen is, let's say you'll have 10 times optical zoom and then 30 times digital zoom. Only go out to the portion where the digital zoom starts. Never go beyond that, because all digital zoom does is blow up the size of the pixels, which isn't going to help the quality of the final image at all. You can always do that in post-production a lot more efficiently, and an analyst can do it a lot more efficiently when he's viewing optical zoom footage. The other thing to remember as well is it depends obviously on daytime and nighttime, but if you have any sort of control over shutter speed and the various other possible functions that your particular camera might have, become familiar with them and understand how they work. And obviously, you're going to want to be familiar with the capabilities of your particular piece of equipment. So again, those 3 points: always maintain as steady and as braced a camera filming position. Never go beyond the optical analog zoom range of your camera or video camera, and always remember to turn off your autofocus. Those are the 3 main things.
Chris, you're assuming you can even turn the autofocus off.
I'm saying if that function is available, yeah. Most fairly good quality camcorders, you do have the option of using a manual or automatic focus.
I'm looking at the settings, for example, on a Samsung Galaxy S3, which is the previous version of the flagship phone from Samsung. And there are a lot of automatic settings you can make in terms of exposure. You can control exposure value, white balance. But if you turn off the auto stuff, then you get into things like metering and contrast and stuff like that, which is very important. So you can do a few things if you turn off the special effects. So that's one thing to understand. They also have GPS tag, which I would include on any of these cameras, because what you want to do here is you want to be able to have some kind of hard copy of your location.
Yeah,
where you were when it happened, because that also can separate the wheat from the chaff. If you say you were in Hawaii, but the photo says you were in Podunk, Iowa, and no disrespect to the people in Podunk, Iowa, but at least you can demonstrate, assuming you don't somehow manipulate that tagging, where you actually were when the picture was taken. We're telling you how to create a real UFO photo here, not the fakery, but the real thing, photos or movies. With Gene, Chris, and Goggs, you're in
the Paracast.
America's #1 source for independent talk radio for over a decade. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter, and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code NIGHTOWL. Use the coupon code NIGHTOWL to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKE soft.com. lemkesoft.com. LEMKE soft.com.
HempUSA.org has a revolutionary wonder food for detoxing the body and rebuilding the immune system. Microplant powder can help unclog arteries and soften heart valves while removing heavy metals, virus, fungus, bacteria, and parasites. Plus, it cleans and purifies the blood, lungs, stomach, and colon. Keep your body clean with Microplant powder. Order today at 888-910-4367 or visit HempUSA.org.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. Have you ever wondered why banks, stockbrokers, investment advisors won't talk about gold IRAs? They've been available since 1986, yet the financial industry won't recognize the value of gold for your retirement. Gold has outperformed paper investments, yet no word about IRAs. If you would like to have gold for your retirement, call 800-686-2237. Don't get left behind by rising inflation and low returns. Call 800-686-2237. Secure your future and call 1-800-686-2237.
What do you do when your propane runs out and you don't have a large amount of wood for cooking? That's when you need a Grover rocket stove from StockStorage.com. The Grover rocket stove starts easily with any combustible material like junk mail, small twigs, leaves, weeds, or dry sagebrush. Then just add a small amount of kindling wood and you'll be cooking entire meals in minutes. Grover rocket stoves are made right here in the USA and are built to last a lifetime using heavy-duty thick-gauge steel and are painted with high-temp paint to withstand heat. Go to StockStorage.com and see 3 great Grover rocket stoves, stainless steel, heavy duty, or our original Grover rocket stove for only $135 and get free shipping to the lower 48. For phone orders, call 801-361-6984 or go to StockStorage.com. That's 801-361-6984 or StockStorage.com. The original Grover rocket stove minimal wood use cooking stoves, available exclusively from StockStorage.com.
Hello?
Congratulations.
For what?
For losing all that weight. How'd you do it so fast?
ASAP.
ASAP what? What's that mean?
Are you ready to get as skinny as possible, as soon as possible, as simple as possible, and as sexy as possible?
I'm listening.
Then get with the ASAP program. It's real and it works. No smooth talk, no slick advertising, and no exaggerated claims of success.
I've got to know more.
Welcome to ASAP, as slim as possible. Whether you have 10, 20, or 50 pounds to lose, ASAP is your weight loss answer. ASAP targets the abnormal fat reserves and makes them available to be burned as fuel and contains no caffeine or hormones. Order ASAP at wholesale prices or join the team to share the business with others. Visit GCNteam.com or call 877-878-4203. GCNteam.com or call 877-878-4203. Lose weight and look great with ASAP, as slim as possible.
Hi, this is Nick Pope. You're listening to the Paracast.
With Gene and Chris, assisted by Goggs Mackay, one of our loyal listeners and a longtime student of the paranormal, we're exploring the ramifications of last week's episode and, more to the point, constructive information on how to take your own photos or movies. Now, one other thing you have here, and of course with the smartphone camera, some of the better ones have what they call auto stabilization, so you get less of the shaking effect. What's the impact of that, Chris?
You know, I tend not to use any sort of stabilization. I think having actual physical stabilization is more important, because what you're doing is you're allowing the camera to approximate the information, and you don't want that. In all perfect scenarios, having a tripod or being able to really brace yourself solidly, especially if you're going to zoom in on something. Another thing that I forgot to mention too is always try to have at least some portion of the footage pulled all the way back to show objects in the foreground. It's important, and let it sit there for a while so that we have a good sense of exactly what is around the actual witness at the time of the filming, and it gives us perspective and context in regards to the object that's being filmed. You can push in on it, but make sure you always have an establishing shot, as they say in the business. Create an establishing shot at some point during the experience. That's really important, because then that allows the analyst a lot more visual information and gives context to the actual object that's being filmed.
Yeah, I've got a point. Yeah, I was going to bring up that about including some kind of reference object in the shot, at least at a point, can help tell with distances and size. Because if you're only seeing blue sky around an object, say, and from start to finish in the shot, then it's very hard to make any kind of judgment or measurement of size and stuff. And you know what? I had a second good point, and it's completely gone out of my head. I'll come back with it in a second. Oh, no, I've got it. Yeah, it's come back. Great, the brain's working. What it is so many times when I've seen some of the decent documentaries on UFOs, and the narrator will say, such and such a person filmed the object for X amount of time, and then it left at speed. Now, what I'm really interested in is not just seeing a stationary or slow-moving object. What really gets me going is when they start to have instant acceleration, etc. So I would also say, if you're filming an object, try and continue filming it until it leaves. I want to see how it leaves where it is or how it's moving. That's the thing that really I want to see that really fast maneuvers or maybe right-angled turns, it going straight up in the sky and stuff, to film an object, because let's face it, they're not going to stay there forever. So even if it takes an hour or more, I would implore people to try and capture its exit, because that might be the thing that proves most that it is not mundane. And that was my point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There aren't that many videos, even if we were to take time to sit and trawl through Third Phase of Moon or any other kind of UFO collection site or documentary. There are very few videos that show objects moving in such a way. There are some out there, but I remember there was a couple I had in my head. I remembered I spent hours going through UFO documentaries trying to find these individual ones, and I did find one. I'm sure it's something off the coast of Florida or something, but anyway, this object is stationary out over the ocean for a while, and I might mention that I'm pretty sure it was filmed on like an old VHS camcorder or something, but this thing really does just go off it goes. And to go from stationary to that's the interesting part. Not stationary. Obviously it depends on what is actually happening. You can't pick and choose. That's my main thing. That's what interests me, and I would implore people to stay with it and try and capture how it leaves the space it's in.
Right. And it's always good to be pulled back some, because if it leaves and you're totally zoomed in on it, you're going to have a hard time capturing where it went if it goes out of frame. So always be ready. If that object appears to be getting ready to take off, always pull back. Pull back the zoom.
Oh, and another thing, obviously, is if you do see one by chance and you're with someone else, get them to film it too. Maybe move away from you a bit to try and get two points of view, and also it's corroboration. Much harder to fake two individual videos that are filming the same thing than it is one. Which brings up this whole the Temple Mount thing in Jerusalem. Where's there 3 or 4 videos of that? I don't know what the current thinking on that whole thing is if it's fake, but it's very well choreographed if it's faked. Chris, have you got?
Well, I always until those second and third videos showed up, I just thought the thing was a hoax, and you're correct. More camera angles of in trying to create an elaborate hoax. Obviously, it's much more difficult to provide other camera angles. It's not impossible by any stretch, but it is much more difficult and takes a lot more time. Maybe that's why these other clips, it took so long for them to be actually publicized, because they were too busy manufacturing them to actually come out with them right away. The events like the eclipse in 92, I think, or 91 down in Mexico City, where you had, I think, up to 18 different camcorders going on a silver, looking orb in the sky, high in the sky. That's one of the rare examples of people outside actually filming something else and then able to discern something that looks extraordinary and then get footage of it from all different angles. There's been a couple of good projects, I think, that have been done comparing different camera angles. Obviously, you're going to have some sort of time issues there. It's kind of hard to synchronize cameras unless you're working in concert with a team. But I think they were able, in a few instances, to actually determine very, very accurately the exact time of the footage that was done by other people, unbeknownst to each other. And that sort of triangulation data is really important, because you're able to determine size, distance, speed. If you have more than one camera angle, obviously 3 is the optimal, and more obviously is even better. So yeah, that's a good point. Always, if somebody else is there with a cell phone or a camcorder, have them get away from you if they can. The more distance you put between the vantage points, the more accurate you're going to be able to determine data. So So those are some real good rules of thumb for our aspiring skywatchers out there. Hopefully some of Blake's legions of fans out there will be listening to the show and taking notes.
Before Goggs drops in with a point here, just wanted to mention, among the emails we got, I don't really recall getting anything from anyone saying, "Hi, I am a loyal follower of Third Face of Moon, the YouTube channel, and I approve of his work." We had people who said we shouldn't have attacked him. We had people who applauded us for attacking him or took a middle-of-the-point of view. But nobody said, "I love this site." You wonder about all those fans. Goggs?
Yeah, Chris, you bringing up the eclipse sightings in Mexico City, that brings up something that I've always wanted to mention. And about the question, let's just say there are extraterrestrials, interdimensionals or whatever, but there's non-human intelligence flying these objects. And people often discussing why don't they show themselves, or are they deliberately showing themselves by a certain amount and stuff. You've got to wonder about the deliberateness of the most populous city on Earth during an eclipse, when the most people possible are probably guaranteed going to be looking up in the sky, and that is the time that you get a pretty good sighting of a disc-shaped object. Now, if that wasn't deliberate on the part of whatever that object is, then it's got to be the greatest coincidence ever. To me, that is a kind of a positive for thinking that, yes, at least to a degree, they do want to be seen.
We'll continue with this point of reference. Was it a great coincidence for something like that to happen? With Gene and Chris and Goggs, you're in
the Paracast.
Are you tired of searching for great talk radio?
Something more important.
Search no more. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Whether it's personal mail, whether it's business email, you want reliable, dependable delivery, freedom from spam, freedom from viruses. Well, Polaris Mail offers professional email hosting services for your personal or small business use. Each account uses 25 gigabytes of storage, an easy-to-use webmail interface, and full mobile sync. Sign up today for a 30-day free trial at polarismail.com, polarismail.com. So here's what happened. I was placing an order online. The site went down. It just stopped responding. It took hours before it returned, but I'd already placed the order with another company. If your site goes down, you could lose business. And if you have a business or personal site, you'll want to know it's easy to run and it will stay online. At iWeb, your site is hosted on one of the most reliable networks in the world. Check it out. iWeb.com. That's iWeb.com.
What's safer and cheaper than prescription drugs?
Glad you asked. The answer is Renovation Teas. Herbal remedies are much safer and much cheaper than prescription drugs. Taste great, and most importantly, herbal teas are effective and non-addictive. Renovation Tea is especially unique, and here's why. We spent years researching herbs and their beneficial properties. Renovation Teas uses only 100% organic, fair trade herbs. Our teas are blended towards specific ailments and health conditions, such as diabetes, blood pressure, anxiety, libido, detox, and much more. All Renovation Teas are formulated and hand-filled in Arkansas. Take care of yourself naturally, the way Mother Nature intended. Order Renovation Teas at renovationtea.com or call 870-784-3121. That's 870-784-3121. Renovation Teas. Renovate your health one bag at a time.
You've seen them on Doomsday Preppers. You've seen them on network television, Shipping Wars, and the History Channel. Now, the strongest shelters money can buy are here. Atlas Survival Shelters. Made in America from 10-foot diameter galvanized corrugated pipe up to 11 times stronger than square box shelters and built to last up to 200 years. And you won't believe the amenities. Atlas shelters contain microwaves, refrigerators, big screen TVs, water tanks, septic systems, bulletproof hatches, and much more. Virtually everything you have at home, just buried 20 feet deep and bomb-proof. See the amazing Atlas Survival Shelters at atlassurvivalshelters.com or call 1-855-4BUNKER. That's 855-4BUNKER or atlassurvivalshelters.com. Financing now available. Atlas Survival Shelters. Better prepared than scared.
Gardeners, here comes another growing season, but don't use last year's soil. Maximize yields in your survival garden with EM1 from Terraganics. EM1 is an organic soil conditioner, fertilizer amendment, and compost accelerant that provides a broad spectrum of beneficial microorganisms, enzymes, trace minerals, vitamins, and various organic acids. EM1 helps regulate the soil's pH level and its soil microbes, improving moisture retention and drought tolerance. Remember last year's dry conditions? EM1 from Terraganics is safe, chemical-free, and certified for use on all organic farms. It improves plant quality, size, color, flavor, and gives up to 20% more nutrient value in fruits and vegetables and greatly increases shelf life. And EM1 is so simple to use, just mix with water and apply. This year, prepare your crisis garden for maximum yields with EM1 from Terraganics.com. Order now at TERAGANIX.com or call toll-free 866-369-3678. That's 866-369-3678. Terraganics. Life's getting better.
This is Kurt Seven, the author of UFO Mysteries, and you're listening to the Paracast.
With Gene and Chris and Goggs Mackay, we explore the implications of this YouTube channel by the Cousins brothers, or the twins who shall not be named. Give them a new name. That would be it, because that other guy who follows the one-armed man, we called him He Who Shall Not Be Named. So maybe we should call this one The Twins Who Shall Not Be Named. Goggs, you want to finish your point before Chris takes over?
I think I had finished. Chris was going to come in saying that he disagrees.
Yeah, because, first of all, it wasn't a dish-shaped object. It was a round, silvery ball, if I remember correctly, which, if it was dish-shaped, it was on edge. But according to the various vantage points around the city, it did look to be fairly large and fairly round and highly reflective. Now, who's to say that some psychotronic weapons team didn't come up with an idea, well, hey, let's see how our new, exotic black technology drone will be perceived over the world's most populous city when we know people are going to be looking up. Maybe that could have been floated down from White Sands or from Holloman or from Fort Huachaca or from any number of southern tier U.S. military bases, hovered over the city just to gauge the reaction of the local populace who they knew were going to be looking up that day. So, I think you're kind of making an assumption that was something off planet or extra mundane, when in fact we do have the technology to hover in the sky, to have unmanned drones. I think we've had this technology for quite some time. This is not something I think that's been discussed much in the field. It needs to be discussed more. I think a lot of sightings, for instance, in the San Luis Valley, where I investigated full-time for 10 years, I think a sizable percentage of what people were seeing down there and still see down there could be very mundane but exotic technology that's very terrestrial in nature. So, we have to be careful not to jump towards a high strange off-planet or extra-dimensional meta-ultra, with extraterrestrial definition. We need to factor out all mundane explanations before we jump off-planet.
That's like, for example, taking some kind of corpse or fossil of a small fetus and saying, hey, folks, this is an alien body, as some people do.
That's a good segue.
Yeah.
You guys have a chance to look at this documentary that was posted online from Steven Greer about Sirius, I guess they call it, to name the star system?
Goggs, you could go first. I'm not, because I'm going to see it next week when I go and crew up for the citizens hearing on disclosure at the National Press Club in D.C. We're going to have some sort of secondary premiere there of the film. So I don't want to give Steven Greer even $10 as far as I'm concerned, though.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't pay for it. I noticed in the forums that somebody has watched it. I can't really remember enough of what they said, but I certainly, if a copy is made available on YouTube to watch for free, I'll absolutely watch it. And actually, it's just this is very pertinent. Today, there's probably the second biggest selling daily in the UK, a tabloid that is. We have The Sun, but then the next one is called The Star, and about page 3 or something like that, there is an article about that little humanoid skeleton body thing that Dr. Greer is going on about. And I took a photo with my Samsung Galaxy of this article just because you could so tell that the person writing the article didn't have the first clue who Steven Greer is, because the way he's written about it's just this. Well, they think he's just some, like a medical doctor from California or something. It doesn't mention anything about his UFO or disclosure background, anything like that. And almost the tone of it as if, yeah, we should really listen to this guy because he's a doctor. That's the way I read it. But you got to wonder about if Greer's, inverted commas, people have been, sending out the stories to the news agencies and stuff, because it's quite funny that this documentary is just coming out and this article's in the Star in the UK, but they obviously didn't have a clue about Greer's history or anything, because it was very neutral and it just mentioned him, such and such a doctor thinks this. But in the article anyway, it's saying that it's now been by him anyway, agreed that it is like a freak human skeleton, and he's saying that there's, they've from scans or whatever, they're seeing the heart, liver, all the little organs. Now I've heard of very small people, and the thing's got 9 ribs or something, but so I don't know if all this info was just coming from Greer's camp or not, but the timing is perfect. But back to the documentary, I'll absolutely watch it just because it's like watching a car crash. It's hard not to see what Greer will do next.
Hey, but don't you think it's one of the little people that got caught in the desert without any grog?
You better ask your ancestors then, Chris, or your distant relations in the Emerald Isle.
Yeah, I think they were on vacation in the Atacama, and they got waylaid.
Top of the morning.
I think one of the problems here is when we talk about something like that, and it's gotten some publicity, if we spend too much time giving Steven Greer unneeded publicity.
Or Blake Cousins.
And Blake Cousins is getting a lot more than he deserves. But when we talk about someone like a Steven Greer, we dealt with him several years ago in the Paracast, and he did not acquit himself well when he did our show. And he's still charging people thousands of dollars to go on his little trips to see UFOs. And he's making these crazy claims. Well, someone offered him $2 billion to close down his SETI organization. They've got this documentary, which has gotten really bad reviews, claiming that they've got this little skeleton or whatever of an alien being, which everybody says is actually old news. It's something that they had discovered and analyzed years ago. If you read the stories, you see. But he kind of gloms onto this stuff, and you wonder, when you draw attention to people like that and discuss them endlessly for hours, whether or not it's just going to cause people to want to go to the shows or to the documentary. So right now people will be looking on YouTube for the serious documentary from Steven Greer. Other people will be going to look at the channel run by the twins who shall not be named, for the same reason that, either they want to see a train wreck or see what the fuss is all about.
I think it should be Stephen O'Greer. I think he's got a wee bit of the leprechaun in him.
I think he's got a bit of the David Koresh in him. For listeners who don't know, that's the Branch Davidian leader guy from the Waco, Texas shambles.
I hope not.
I could tell you stories. I've known Stephen for 20 years now.
Tell us a few stories.
20 years. Well, my favorite was one of the first times that I ever actually it was the first time that I ever actually was asked by him to do anything, basically, and it was about the third or fourth time he had come to Crestone, Colorado, and this would have been 94, 95, and I was supposed to give a a brief, 20-minute, half-hour talk to these really super rich, highfalutin socialites, and Lawrence Rockefeller's right-hand man, Bootsy Galbraith, Sandy Wright, who funded the best available evidence, or Rockefeller funded the best available evidence document that Greer then appropriated and released prematurely. But he had all these really highfalutin people there, and he wanted me to give them some information about the history and whatnot about the San Luis Valley where we were where they were gathered. And unfortunately, being a volunteer fireman, we had a really bad grass fire that morning. I had to go out and fight this fire, and got caught in the fire and got some pretty bad smoke inhalation, and was about a half hour late for my talk. And when I came in, I just reeked of of grass fire, and my eyes were all red, and I was kind of choking and coughing, and I was in no mood. And at this point, I'd pretty much figured out Greer's David Koresh tendencies, and so kind of a little bit undiplomatically and a little bit out of character, I would add. I got up there and gave my little presentation, and then, Greer tried to appropriate it as he has a habit of doing. And I said, the last thing I want to mention to everybody, and this is really important, and that is, Steven, your message is way more important than you are. Oh, but I said, no, Steven, you didn't hear me. And I said it 3 times in front of all these people.
And we're going to have to say this a couple of times, too. Yes, here we are, catching up. We're talking shop. One of those special episodes. And, of course, if you want to get in touch with us, check us out on Twitter, where we are known as the Paracast. Look for the Paracast on Facebook, or go to forum.theparacast.com. We got to do our break with Goggs and Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
The GCN Radio Network, providing the world with hard-hitting talk radio. GCN. Great talk radio starts here.
Hi, this is Ted Anderson. If you'd like to listen to GCN programs on the go, I have great news. GCN has created a Droid and iPhone application, and it's free. Just as easy as going to GCNlive.com, click on the banner, and download. Before you know it, you'll be listening to your favorite hard-hitting GCN shows, live or on demand, right on your Droid or iPhone, 24/7 and on the go. So download the Droid and iPhone app free by clicking on the banner at GCNlive.com. Thanks again for listening to GCNlive.com. Again, that's GCNlive.com. We the people grow cotton, weave fabric, engrave ink, embed strips and fibers to protect from counterfeit and carting to a private bank, having it lent back at interest, forcing taxes to service debt. This capitalism, or was Jefferson correct when stating a central bank issuing the public currency is a greater menace to the liberties of the people than a standing army? Ted Anderson, I'm placing a free silver dollar in a book that explains our monetary system. Call for your copy, 800-686-2237. It's time to understand the system. Call 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
We all know that Berkey Water Purification Systems are the most trusted name in water filtration. As an authorized Berkey dealer for over 6 years and serving thousands of satisfied customers, the Berkey Guy offers amazing specials for Berkey Water Filtration Systems. The Berkey Light Systems include a set of self-sterilizing and recleanable black purification elements that purify water by removing chlorine, pathogenic bacteria, cysts, and parasites to non-detectable levels and remove harmful chemicals such as herbicides and pesticides. Order the Berkey Light System today, complete with 2 black Berkey elements for only $231, and the Berkey Guy will ship your order free of charge. With the purchase of a Berkey Light, the Berkey Guy is also offering a set of fluoride and arsenic filters for only $39.99. That's over 30% off the retail price. Call the Berkey Guy at 1-877-886-3653. That's 1-877-886-3653. Or order online at GoBerkey.com. That's GoBerkey.com today.
Welcome back to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio. And now, here's Gene Steinberg.
With Gene and Chris and Goggs Mackay, we're talking about the state of UFO research and some of the sideshow carnival barkers like the twins who shall not be named, our official new name for them, and the certain Dr. Greer. and you were trying to emphasize something when you did this presentation before him, that it's the information, not the guy.
I really did. I made a point of saying that. And his second in command was, at that point, it turned into one of my best friends, Sherry Adamak, who we tragically lost to galloping melanoma in 1998. But one thing I want to point out about the good doctor, or I use that term loosely, every year, I think now for 17, 18, 19 years, he's been doing his Ambassadors to the Universe training in Crestone. In fact, I think that was the first place that he started giving these trainings, and he's been back every year. Well, the first 5 or 6 years that he did these trainings in the San Luis Valley in Crestone, I find it very ironic and almost comic that they do these trainings and be flashing their lights and playing the cuckoo, crop circle sounds, and flashing their lights and doing all this coherent thought sequencing, laying their hands on the doctor and the whole deal. And all through the 90s, it was really weird. We would have sightings that would happen the same night. There would be a number of reports, and this happened actually in several consecutive years, yet there were no reports worth note. Where CSETI was doing their trainings and calling in the aliens. And at one point, after about the third or fourth year of this, I asked him, I said, Stephen, are you sure you're giving out correct instructions on how to get to you? It's like you're giving out bad directions or something, because they're showing up everywhere but where you want them to show up. I find it kind of ironic that you would have sightings being reported around the valley everywhere but where he was.
And he was charging people to be there.
Maybe that's it. Maybe aliens are allergic.
You see, the aliens do not have a monetary system.
So, my problem with Greer is this charging money to point lasers to the sky. It's so against the kind of, disclose the truth to all kind of ethos that he tries to show to people. He thinks that there should be a democratization of the information about the aliens, UFOs, whatever. And he just seems to be out to profit for it. And he charges a lot as well for what is basically standing out in the open in, it's not even his land as far as I know, and pointing lasers in the sky. And, isn't it illegal to point lasers at flying objects anyway?
That's a good point. But my biggest problem is, number one, who elected him mankind's or humankind's ambassador to the universe? Where does he get off training other people to be ambassadors to the universe? You're talking about democratization here. Who elected him? That's the problem I have, the hubris and the just this messianic type quality that he obviously has. That's what bothers me the most.
Yeah.
If there's suckers out there, they're going to pay money to have him train them to be ambassadors to the universe, then you got to take your hat off to the guy. I mean, he lives pretty well. He's got a huge house. He's pretty well off. So, if people need that in their lives, who are we to question the validity of their decision making? But the hubris and the messianic quality that he has to assume that he can train ambassadors to the universe, and that he is the ambassador of humankind, representing us lowly humans here on planet Earth. That to me is just it's inexcusable. I'm sorry.
Yeah, somebody pointed out in the forums the Sirius documentary. How was it funded? Because it wasn't out of his pocket.
He did one of those internet funding organizations where you put up a site and it's a donation. I forget what they call them. There's a bunch of them out there now that you can set up to fund projects. It's pretty ingenious the way they do it. But yeah, he raised quite a bit of money. And I mean, Greer's been thumping his particular cult of personality routine for quite some time. He's got quite a name for himself in some circles, especially the New Age kind of crossover New Age UFO community. Yeah. He's very well considered. He is a very magnetic guy. He does have a very kind of pound in the pulpit, sort of rousing the troops style when he presents. He's got a command of the English language, and he always when you try to get him into a tight corner and try to pin him down, he'll invariably make the comment something to akin of, "Well, I've been on the ships and I know." That's the kind of attitude he has.
Yeah.
a lot of people don't realize that Greer considers himself to be an experiencer. When he was 18, he was brought aboard the ships. And, there's a whole kind of story there that the average person that knows about Greer doesn't have an inkling about. But he's on some divine mission, some inspired messianic path that one just has to...
I'd go as far as to say that I couldn't say which, but it wouldn't surprise me to find out that he actually has some kind of mental illness, because this Messiah complex thing, I think he really does think that he's almost been chosen to lead the people into the new age of finding out what the truth about all this is. And I think he's a cheeky so-and-so in that he gets, some YouTube method of funding his documentary, so it's not out of his own pocket. But then he charges for it as well. He charges however many $1,000s to be... Usually in the world, when you take money from people to give them instruction and stuff, usually you need bags of experience or some kind of qualification that says you can train people in whatever, grade 8 piano teaching or whatever. But who appointed him this ambassador trainee? How did he get to that position in his own mind? I mean, how does he feel? Did he think that he was programmed to do this from his experience from age 18? I don't know, but I think there's stuff going on in his head that is utterly fantastical. It's a fantasy, but he either believes it or he is kind of acting it very well. And if he's acting it very well, it just makes him even more of a money grabber and a fraud.
Here's the key here. He's a public figure, so we can call him that, and he's not going to sue us. I hope. But seriously speaking here, the issue here is you do not need a license to be a UFO investigator. You do not need a license to have people pay money to go out on UFO exploratory expeditions.
Yeah, but you need a license to do it at a park in North Carolina where he got busted and fined because he didn't have a license to do a commercial operation on I think it was a state park in North Carolina. You might want to check those facts, but I do recall a couple of years ago he was busted because somebody didn't file the proper paperwork, and if they had, they wouldn't have allowed him to do what he was doing. There are some weak links in the chain there, but the weakest link is Greer's absolute, positive, just thump the table assertion that ETs are absolutely benevolent. There is no record of anybody ever being harmed by UFOs or by any sort of extraterrestrials. And anybody that's done even the slightest bit of digging into this whole phenomenon can talk about the cases around Colara, around the mouth of the Amazon in the late 70s, early 80s, where people were actually killed. All you have to do is read Jacques Vallée's book, Confrontations. There's case after case after case where people were harmed and were injured, and in some cases, rare cases, but even potentially killed by what Greer would call alien technology. And his assertion that all abductions are done by the military, these are blanket statements that he makes. He says there is no evidence whatsoever that ETs are anything but benevolent space brothers here to solve all our problems and save us.
Yes, ET is here to help us rather than to harm us. That was a phrase I think I heard a long time ago in one of the more sarcastic comments from the late Gray Barker, and that goes back probably to the 1950s or 1960s. The UFO visitors are here to help us rather than to harm us, and believing that may make us more vulnerable if they were here to harm us. Who knows? We have Goggs Mackay joining us this week with Gene and Chris. You're in
the Paracast.
Is there a secret UFO agenda? Do strange creatures from the darkest corners of the mind roam the earth? Is there evidence for mind control, time travel, or devious government conspiracies? Find out the inside scoop on the latest conspiracies, paranormal activity, and Fortean phenomena when you subscribe to Tim Beckley's Conspiracy Journal. It's jam-packed with stories, special book and DVD promotions, and the best news, it's absolutely free. sent right to your mailbox, plus a bonus free email newsletter sent out every Friday. Simply send an email with your name and address to Mr. UFO at webtv.net. That's Mr. UFO at webtv.net. Find out what they don't want you to know.
Have you ever felt like the United States government knows way too much about your financial affairs? I continue to hear stories about property seizures, frozen bank accounts, confiscation of stocks and bonds. It makes me wonder if the U.S. citizen will ever again have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Unfortunately, with the Drug and Money Laundering Act, the IRS Revenue Ruling 6045 of 1984, and the Trading with the Enemy Act and Franklin D. Roosevelt's Executive Order of 1933, some precious metal holdings are subject to government intervention. For this reason, Midas Resources has prepared a report explaining the boundaries of trading precious metals privately. Whether if you have any intention of trading with Midas Resources or not, I have instructed my representatives to give this report out free. Call for your free copy at 1-800-686-2237. When investing, always proceed with caution. Again, call 1-800-686-2237. Exercise your legal right to trade metals privately. 1-800-686-2237.
Sergeant Dave Scott, Army Search and Rescue veteran, wants you to hear this urgent message. All emergencies have casualties, but in America, most casualties from storms like Katrina and Sandy only happen because good people were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Don't let that happen to you. Visit yourbugoutplan.com on the web. Watch a free video presentation of the skills you need to be long gone before any disaster can touch you. You owe it to yourself and to your family to watch this. Head to yourbugoutplan.com on the web right now, yourbugoutplan.com. Bills in front of Congress right now could take away your right to keep and bear arms. If Obama has his way, all guns will be either banned, restricted, or confiscated, possibly by executive order. The best way to keep your guns is to hide them. What Obama can't find, Obama can't take away. You can protect your guns from any threat. Download our special report, How to Hide Your Guns, at GoHideYourGuns.com. Learn how to hide your guns while keeping them readily available. Get the report now before they make us take it down. On the web at GoHideYourGuns.com.
Digestive health is the key to wellness and elimination of toxins. That bears repeating. Digestive health is the key to wellness and elimination of toxins. And Pro EM1 Daily Probiotic Cleanse is the key to digestive health. Pro EM1 is a powerful liquid probiotic, strong enough to cleanse, gentle enough to use every day. Pro EM1 is dairy, wheat, and soy free, contains all natural and certified organic ingredients, contains no preservatives or animal products, supports a healthy digestive and immune system, supports weight loss, improves absorption of food nutrients, aids in controlling yeast infections, is never freeze-dried, and uses 3 groups of live, viable, beneficial microbes to cleanse and remove toxins. Order Pro EM1 Daily Probiotic Cleanse at Terraganics.com, spelled Terraganix.com, Terraganics.com, or call toll-free 866-369-3678. That's 866-369-3678. Pro EM1, the raw probiotic.
We'd like to hear from you. If you have a comment or question about the Paracast, send it to news@theparacast.com. That's news@theparacast.com. And don't forget to visit our famous Paracast community forums at forum.theparacast.com.
Our final segments on the Paracast with Gene and Chris and Goggs Mackay. We're talking about this serious UFO documentary, which may not be serious, from Steven Greer. Now, Chris, I want to ask you, parenthetically to disclosure and everything, you're going to be in the Washington, D.C. area at this National Press Club event, which will be heard this coming week and form, by the way, the basis of next week's episode of the Paracast. Tell us more.
I've been loosely associated with Ronald James films for a number of years, going on 6.5, 7 years. Ron used to have a studio here in the Sedona area. I was one of his editors, camera people. I really kind of helped him get a foot into the whole realm of the paranormal and ufology and doing documentary work and helping him network within this particular incestuous and small community. He moved out to L.A., and one of the people that I introduced him to, and he struck up a bit of a relationship with, was Stephen Bassett. Stephen has gotten $1.2 million from some unknown source, supposedly a private individual who he has some sort of business relationship. I don't know how Stephen Bassett was able to drum up that kind of cash, but about half of that is being spent on a series of mock hearings, or a mock hearing with a series of witnesses coming forward to the National Press Club. And he's paid, I think, 5 or 6 ex-congressmen and women $20,000 apiece to play the parts of themselves and kind of act out what it would be like to actually have congressional hearings on the UFO disclosure subject. I've been asked by Ron James, who's been hired to document the event, and I think work on a documentary based on these hearings, to actually, on the go, live, one-shot, 4-camera shoot. I'm not sure what my job's going to be. I have a feeling I'm going to be operating one of the more difficult camera positions. I don't think I'm doing audio. I may be doing the switcher because it's going to be a live switched event. I do urge everybody who's interested in the subject. I think it's a good idea. It'd be interesting to see how these ex-Congress people handle some of the witnesses that are going to be presented. I think as an exercise of head-scratching sort of mock drama, I think it's going to be interesting. Whether it actually has any sort of impact on people that are currently sitting in Congress is highly doubtful in my mind. Whether the whole disclosure of an alien presence here is ever going to happen from the U.S. government is highly doubtful in my mind, and I think is a pipe dream. But it's going to be an interesting 4-day exercise to see how this thing unfolds. I'm going to be right there helping film it, and then hopefully working in the post-production process. What I'm going to try to do, Gene, is when I'm there, I'm going to land somebody, possibly one of these Congress people, or maybe a series of potential guests, and do a show talking about these hearings and addressing the whole subject of Congress and the subject of UFO disclosure. That's kind of what's in the works for me. It's going to be interesting. I've been asked to wear casual business clothes, of which I own none. Well, I've got a lot of Hawaiian shirts, too, so maybe I'll come as Blake Cousins. I mean, one of the twins that shall not be mentioned or named.
Is it known if any of these ex-congressmen, women, whatever, were any of them interested in the UFO topic beforehand, or have they been kind of picked fresh just because they're available and they're like test subjects to see if they can be convinced, or
Well, that's a really good question, Gordon. I'm not sure about that. I think possibly one or two have a passing interest in the subject, but I think the $20,000 I think is probably the main inducement.
Oh, I see.
Getting $5-6 grand a day just to sit there and pretend like you're a congressman talking about UFOs on camera. I mean, these people needed to be bought, and quite a sizable chunk of change is being spent on just making it appear legit.
You see a lot of people who leave Congress, they join lobbyist organizations. It gives them credibility, but those are the high-profile people in Congress. Are these high-profile people, or just somebody who got elected for 1 or 2 terms and they're gone?
Well, a couple of them actually, I think, are long-time sitting members. I think there's 1 or 2 that were only there for 2 or 4 years. But I've just briefly kind of looked at resumes and what have you, and there are a couple that were returning term after term. We're not talking about big household names or anything. We're not talking Tom DeLay, or you could name any number. Larry Craig.
That Podesta guy would have been good.
Well, the problem would also be here that if they are high-profile political figures, they would not want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. So you have to get people who maybe are in the second string of ex-members of Congress.
Believe me, I'm going to have a lot of information before this thing is through. I'm going to find out who these people are, how they were induced to do this, what their motivations are in terms of the subject rather than the remuneration. But I think it is an interesting idea. I think it's a lot of just grandstanding and play acting to spend all this money and retain this particular very esteemed location to do this in. To me, I don't see any usefulness looking at it as something that's geared toward an end result. I don't think it has a snowball's chance in hell of convincing Congress how easy and how important it is to do this. For real. As everyone that out there that listens to the Paracast knows, I'm really very dubious about the whole concept of disclosing something that I have a hunch the government is more confused about than we are. The government is never going to admit that they aren't in control, that they don't know. It's just anathema to what they're about. They're about being all-knowing. They're about being totally in control. Just look at the martial law-esque lockdown around Watertown last week or a week and a half ago. So, this is going to be a very interesting exercise, just, as Goggs mentioned, rubbernecking at a car crash. But it's going to be interesting. And I've been hired to do this, and I'm going there as a video professional, but I'm also going as an interested aspiring insider to really get the lowdown scoop on who the players are in this thing, what the end purpose is, and all the machinations that are obviously going to have to take place to pull this thing off. So we're going to try to do a show from there with some guests involved in the process for our next Paracast episode. And it starts tomorrow. They are streaming this live. So if you're interested in this, go to the Citizens Hearing on Disclosure website. Check it out. I do think it's going to be very interesting how this thing actually unfolds. I'm looking forward to this for a variety of reasons. And I do urge anybody out there that's interested in this subject and in this process to tune in and go to the internet site and stream this live. It'll be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of next week. Should be interesting, definitely.
This is going to be a daytime thing, or is it going to be like from the daytime to the nighttime?
I haven't been given a shooting schedule or any sort of itinerary or list or schedule, so I really don't know. I don't see it going for more than a few hours a day. I could be wrong. Again, I'm not privy to those details yet. I don't know how they're actually going to stage this, when it starts, how long it's going to go for. I should probably send out a few emails and find out.
I'll tell you what, I have the schedule here, citizenshearing.org. And Monday, you don't want to hear this, Monday, 7 p.m., Steven Greer. And then the Sirius documentary will be on display. Tuesday, and this is going to be a couple of days after you hear the show, ladies and gentlemen, Stanton Friedman, Grant Cameron, Richard Dolan. Wednesday, Donald Schmidt, Linda Moulton Howe, Peter Davenport. Thursday, Kevin Randall, who has a new book out, by the way. We'll get Kevin back on the Paracast soon. Nick Pope, Gary Heseltine. So that's the guest list for the evening presentations. With Gene and Goggs and Chris, you're in
the Paracast.
America's #1 source for independent talk radio for over a decade. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Graphic Converter is the image manipulation tool for the rest of us. It does not use any database. You get full control of all your files. Want to view the images of a folder? Drag it into Graphic Converter, and a powerful browser opens up to show your image files. You could use it for slideshows. You could use it to import images from digital cameras or from scanners. Need to do some image editing? You can do that too in Graphic Converter. Also print catalogs. Convert from so many formats I can't even list them. Download now to see if Graphic Converter is good for you, like 1.5 million other users. Guess what? You could save money when you buy Graphic Converter. Use the coupon code Night Owl. Use the coupon code Night Owl to get a special price for Graphic Converter. Go to lemkesoft.com. That's LEMKEsoft.com. lemkesoft.com. LEMKEsoft.com.
If you owe the IRS back taxes, listen carefully. Sweeping changes to IRS policies will help more people than ever eliminate their tax debts once and for all. And now, thanks to Dan Pilla, you can get the tax help you need to end your tax nightmare.
Hi, I'm Dan Pilla. I've helped thousands of people reduce or eliminate tax debts they couldn't pay. And after more than 30 years of experience dealing with the IRS, I can tell you there's no such thing as a hopeless tax case. With the IRS's new policies, it's easier than ever to put your tax debt behind you once and for all. Call now at 800-346-6829 to learn how I can help you. You know your IRS debt will not go away by itself, but you don't have to live in fear anymore. Call 800-346-6829. Learn how I can help you eliminate wage and bank levies, release tax liens, and negotiate a settlement with the IRS that will put your tax nightmare behind you forever. Call 800-34-NO-TAX or go to my website, taxhelponline.com. That's taxhelponline.com.
Hi, this is Dr. Joel Wallach, the Dead Doctors Don't Lie guy, and I'm here to give you a personal invitation to my presentation, April 29th, Bethel College, Odom Lecture Hall, Room 101, Bethel Court, McKinsey, Tennessee. And I'm going to show you things that's going to save your life. I'm going to show you things that will help you avoid going to doctors for 60 years. Won't that make the medical system humble? 7 p.m., Monday night, April 29th, Bethel College, Odom Lecture Hall, Room 101, Bethel Court, McKinsey, Tennessee. It's free. Tell them Dr. Wallach sent you.
We
the people grow cotton, weave fabric, engrave ink, embed strips and fibers to protect from counterfeit, and carting to a private bank, having it led back at interest, forcing taxes to service debt. This capitalism, or was Jefferson correct when stating a central bank issuing the public currency is a greater menace to the liberties of the people than a standing army? Hi, Ted Anderson. I'm placing a free silver dollar in a book that explains our monetary system. Call for your copy, 800-686-2237. It's time to understand the system. Call 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
Do you suffer from low-functioning adrenal or thyroid gland? Did you know that mercury from your dental fillings comes off your teeth both as a vapor and as metal particles into your body? Wherever mercury deposits in your body, it stops cells from functioning normally. Animal studies show that mercury causes kidney function to drop by 60%. Mercury deposited into your adrenals or thyroid will cause a corresponding drop in function. The number one method by which your body detoxifies itself of mercury is glutathione. The number one superfood that helps turn on all 75 trillion cells of your body to produce glutathione is non-denatured whey protein from grass-fed cows. After investigating most high-end whey proteins on the market, only one is the most non-denatured, the most active, the most complete, and in our opinion, the most powerful in what nature originally put into the fresh raw whey. It is One World Whey. Call 888-988-3325. That's 888-988-3325. Or visit oneworldwhey.com. That's oneworldwhey.com.
Hi, my name is Richard Dolan. You're listening to the Paracast.
On the Paracast with Gene and Chris, assisted by Goggs Mackay, we've been focusing on the state of UFO research after covering the Steven Greer UFO documentary. That will be presented at the National Press Club event on the citizens' hearing. We discuss the twins who shall not be named, and we're talking about UFO photography. Now, there's a question, by the way, from one of our skeptical listeners in the forums, and maybe, Chris, let's bring this up, okay? This is an interesting question which is always asked, and I'll read it. It's from Angelo. So many cameras, so few videos. Why did we get so many great shots from so many angles of the Russian meteor, which was only seen, obviously, for a few seconds before it crashed? They all have dashboard cams. Why don't those cameras ever capture UFOs?
But they do, Angelo. You just don't go out and look for them. You don't go out and find them. Most people don't promote themselves. They don't call up Blake, send their tapes and film or whatever, still pictures into a third phase of Moon or to Coast or any number of internet presences out there. You would be amazed at how many people actually are able to capture footage that none of us ever hear about. And if some of us do, occasionally it does make it into local media, regional media, and even national and international media. For you to blanket state that just because we got all these camera footage, these hood cams or dash cams of this meteor. That meteor was a huge astronomical event, and UFOs tend to be a little bit more difficult to pin down. They tend to be more fleeting. They don't tend to have a huge footprint in the sky normally. So that to me is a non-question. I don't see it as being valid. There are tons and tons of footage being taken all around the world. It's just, I'm sure most of it we're just never going to hear about because of the obvious giggle factors. People don't think it's important. People just want to show it to their friends. You don't know. You don't know that that's the case. So that's my answer.
Hey, Chris, you've touched on something which I think is a brilliant point. If you take 100 people who maybe accidentally, recorded a UFO sighting, and you take 100 people who have gone to the bother of making a hoax, 100% of the hoaxers are going to publicize it, put it out there. But there's nothing to say that anywhere near that number of the genuine ones are even going to be passed on to anyone else for all the reasons outlined. So you've got a very big discrepancy between the motivation of, that's why there's so many folks, because if you're going to go to the bother of making a hoax, you want it to be seen. but not everyone wants their UFO sighting, out there so people can call them, this and that. So that is a big reason why it may be the case.
Well, that, and he's comparing it to the largest object to hit the planet in 100 years. The fact that we have 4 Russian dash cam camera angles on this thing, and a number of kind of reflections in windows from security cameras. There were 18 videos of the object hovering over Mexico City back in '92. There is good quality footage out there. I just seriously doubt that people like Angelo, Lance Moody, who I was really sad to hear wasn't able to make it on the show today. I don't think these guys, maybe Lance does a little bit more than Angelo does, but these guys don't waste their time going out looking through all the dross to find the gems. I seriously doubt it. And the fact that they don't, I don't think it's fair for them to say, well, we never see any good footage. It's because he's not going out and looking for it. You want to go get some good footage? I'll bet you there's at least 30 or 40 good quality pieces of evidence in and amongst the 600, almost 700 videos that have been posted at the site of the 2 brothers whose names shall not be mentioned. Those who shall not be named. So that's my answer. And Goggs, yeah, good point.
Yeah, there are plenty good videos out there, and there are some of the more historical ones. Like that one that was, I believe, in Monument Valley, of this kind of white object that seems to do a quick burst of speed and jumps and jumps. It's being filmed out of the side of a moving car. It's a very well-known piece of footage, but that's just one example. But there are good videos out there, and I obviously can't claim to know for a fact if all of them are genuine or not. But I am interested enough in UFOs to sit and watch, an hour and a half long documentary that includes videos, to go to anonymousfo.com and check out their weekly sightings. And I've even had a look at Blake's site, Third Phase of Moon stuff, and I'm fully aware that there's, lots of crap there and lots of questionable things, or just misidentified or whatever. But there is good stuff out there, but you do have to spend time. And, your hit rate, it's a bit like drilling for oil. 1 in 10 is 1 in 10 holes drilled. That would be a good hit rate for oil companies, for drilling companies. And it's not going to be even that good for UFOs. But that doesn't mean to say that if you look, you're not going to find anything. But you've got to spend the time to go through them. It's just a fact.
This raises, of course, the very big issue here about UFOs and UFO photos, and it's unfortunate in this Facebook, Twitter, YouTube generation that so many people want to post their latest and greatest fakes. It makes it so difficult to get the real thing.
More and more sophisticated.
Right.
So, that's also a problem. As the cost of the technology comes down and becomes more affordable, more people are going to be going out buying it and playing around with it, seeing if they can pull the wool over their friends' eyes, and if they can, then they may, look for bigger fish to try to fool. So it's going to be a problem. It's going to exponentially increase, and we need to, I think, discussing some sort of alternative site that weeds out the fakes, that actually places some sort of fairly astute analysis into the process, and possibly rates some of these footage, or gives them some sort of Rotten Tomato like meter or something, anything that differentiates the good ones from the questionable ones, from the just obvious bad ones. I don't claim to be any sort of visual analyst, but I do know enough to know to look for certain qualities in these videos that, number one, suggest that they've been manufactured, and number two, suggest that they could be the real thing. Things like footage of objects giving off tremendous amounts of energy in heavily moisture-laden skies. You're going to have some ionization effects and possibly plasma-type effects going on in this footage. And oftentimes these Billy Meyer-style clips just you don't have any of the propulsion diagnostic type things that you would expect to see in these films. And one of the things that's easy to kind of state here is that people have kind of a false and sort of sci-fi pop culture view of what UFOs really are. And it's pretty obvious when you see some of these hoaxes that these people are kind of going off what they've seen, in Star Trek or Star Wars, and they don't have a real good sense of what actually a trufo looks like. And oftentimes they don't appear the way that most people kind of imagine they would appear. So, Ray Stanford is a perfect example of somebody who can point this out. And I've learned a lot from Ray and how to analyze images. And I do think that Ray is one of our unsung, hero experts out there in this particular analytical realm. And it's really sad to see so many people having access to technology trying to misuse it just to pull the wool over everybody else's eyes. And that's a sad fact.
And operating in the vain hope that they will either become famous or just become part of the entertainment. You see, to so many people here, UFOs are entertaining, and they might well be, but we're talking about a real phenomenon that we do not understand. And yes, I could see the entertainment value, but we still have a mystery to be solved. We're trying to solve this mystery with Goggs Mackay, Chris O'Brien, Gene Steinberg. You're in
the Paracast. Are you tired of searching for great talk radio?
Something more important.
Search no more. We are the GCN Radio Network.
If you want to get your website online and you need reliable service, first-class service at the lowest possible price, there's only one place to go. Well, DreamHost has a special promotion with our show where they'll offer you unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, one-click web apps such as WordPress, 24/7 support. You can save over $55. You want to know how? Go to dreamhost.com/radio, dreamhost.com/radio. Whether it's personal mail, whether it's business email, you want reliable, dependable delivery, freedom from spam, freedom from viruses. Well, Polaris Mail offers professional email hosting services for your personal or small business use. Each account uses 25 gigabytes of storage, an easy-to-use webmail interface, and full mobile sync. Sign up today for a 30-day free trial at polarismail.com, polarismail.com.
Curious about what comes next? Next is the feeling of vulnerability you get after you arrive home to discover your house has been ransacked by burglars. Fool the bad guys with a new improved fake TV. You asked for it, we listened, and we made our new fake TV 3 times brighter than our previous model. The brightness of our new fake TV is equivalent to a 40-inch TV. It simulates the color and motion of a real TV while you're away from home. And when burglars think someone is home watching television, they're likely to pass your house and move on to an easier target. The new, brighter fake TV is only $39.95 and includes free shipping. Go to faketv.com or call 1-877-5-FAKE-TV. That's 877-532-5388. Or go to faketv.com. Fake TV, the burglar deterrent. Ceramic body armor is rated to stop 6 hits. But what about the 7th? Unlike ceramic or Kevlar, Infidel body armor is proven to take hit after hit, and it just won't quit. Reasonably priced and designed for the smart civilian prepper, Infidel stops hundreds of hits from small arms to high-powered rifles. That means safety and peace of mind. Buy yours at InfidelBodyArmor.com. Spelled INFIDEL bodyarmor.com. Infidel Body Armor just won't quit.
We the people grow cotton, weave fabric, engrave ink, embed strips and fibers to protect from counterfeit and carting to a private bank, having it led back at interest, forcing taxes to service debt. This capitalism, or was Jefferson correct when stating a central bank issuing the public currency is a greater menace to the liberties of the people than a standing army? Hi, Ted Anderson. I'm placing a free silver dollar in a book that explains our monetary system. Call for your copy, 800-686-2237. It's time to understand the system. Call 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237. 866-2237.
A little over a year ago, I began to do a lot of research into why, even though I had a pretty good-sized meal, that I was still starving. And my research led me to a well-known fact that most of the soils that we grow our crops on here in the United States and across the industrialized world are almost completely depleted of almost all of the key minerals and trace elements that our bodies need to rebuild themselves, fight off cancer, and be healthy. I then searched out the best vitamin and mineral company out there and discovered Youngevity. The Youngevity products are designed to give you the real nutrition you need, and once you've got that, you don't have to eat as much to be satisfied. I've lost 37 pounds in 2 months, simply getting the vitamins and minerals I need. Check it out for yourself. It's incredible. Go to InfoWarsTeam.com today and order your first canister of Beyond Tangy Tangerine Complete Multivitamin Mineral Complex Dietary Supplement. That's InfoWarsTeam.com.
Hello, this is Rosemary Ellen Guiley, and you're listening to the Paracast, the gold standard of paranormal radio.
With Gene and Chris and Goggs Mackay in the Paracast, we've been spending our time talking about the state of UFO research, focusing first about the twins who shall not be named, about Dr. Steven Greer, former emergency room physician, whose serious documentary has been getting some attention. We were talking about that event that will be in place when you hear the show, about a citizen's set of UFO hearings, because Congress is too busy repealing the health care law every week. I think they've tried to do that 40 times now, the U.S. Congress. Every week they try to repeal the Obamacare health care law instead of concentrating on real events. And of course, in the days we had real hearings about UFOs back in the 1960s, we got the Condon Commission. So that raises the bigger question. If we get real congressional hearings, not just faux hearings, not a special public event, but the real thing in Congress, are we going to just return back to the 60s, get some kind of commission, investigatory agency or organization, and then it disappears or whitewashes the subject?
I'm amazed it isn't a bigger deal that, that it's been... We know that, for instance, the Condon report was doomed to fail, and there are documents out there like the Twining memo. So some people who just think that the whole UFO topic is just ridiculous. Well, if it's so ridiculous, why are there so many governments around the world have spent money using military officers and men, using their precious time over decades researching this topic, whether we get to know about all of that or not. But, and there are few governments, if any, that will actually say there's no such thing. They always trot out the line about of no defence significance. But I'm amazed that it isn't more widely known that there are documents out there that prove that at least at certain points in history, at very high levels, people were admitting there was these things in the sky, apparently intelligently controlled, and not made by any known humans. There are these... So there is... I'm not talking about a smoking gun as in proving the whole thing about UFOs, but proving that it's not silly in as much that governments and militaries have taken an interest, and also, getting back to the Condon report, about how you can even see, and the CIA, I forget the name of the report, where they're talking about, we need to kind of debunk this and make it seem silly.
Yeah, that was the Robertson panel.
Yes, the Robertson panel. So there are documents out there that prove that there has been a genuine interest at government level, and also there are documents proving that they have been trying to make it seem ridiculous. And to me, I'm surprised that's never been front page news, because I'm sure there are a lot of average people on the street who don't have an active interest in UFOs. I'm sure a lot of these people would be quite surprised to know that these documents and these statements exist, that they were made, because they think about UFOs as just the way they see it on the 9 o'clock news, where they play the X-Files theme and they have the little joke at the end and stuff. I just wonder, is it worth the effort? Because I've tried to not convert friends or family or whatever, but I've tried to point out a few things to them about why I'm interested, because they're absolutely not. And you tell them these little factoids, and they're like, oh, really? And then it just goes out of their mind. And I can't get into the mind of someone who can just put that out of their mind. Or maybe that's a deliberate defense mechanism, because the implications are just so enormous. Maybe a lot of people just can't handle, because they don't want the train of thought thinking, well, if that's true, then this might be true and this might be true. And
ignorance is
destroys
bliss.
Everything. Yes, exactly.
Out of sight, out of mind. I mean, I was never interested in scorpions until I moved into a house that was overrun by these little nasty suckers that stung me 4 times. And I'm real interested in scorpions now, and I've done some research into them, and I've figured out ways to try to keep them out of the house. And you really don't get interested in something until it bites you on the ass, or you see a sighting, you have some sort of unusual experience that you can't explain. I did when I was 7 years old. I kissed that tar baby at an early age. I've been cursed or blessed with that particular experience and others in the intervening years. And I think a lot of it is experiential. Unless you actually have an experience or someone close to you that you trust and believe wholeheartedly has an experience, it's not going to impact your lack of a full reality view in this regard. So I think a lot of it does boil down to actually personally having experiences or knowing someone close to you that's had one. I was approached after a talk in California by a shuttle pilot who said that I was surprised, number one, that he was there to listen to my talk, and I was very flattered that he enjoyed what I had to say, and he took the time to talk to me afterwards. But he said he would never have had any interest in this subject, except for his wife had an incredible experience in Colorado while driving. This huge craft flew right over her car, and she had it in sight for a substantial, minute or two, and she got a really good look at it. And he trusts his wife's observational acuity and believes her that she had this experience, and that got him thinking that maybe there's something to this. And ever since, this happened in the mid-'70s, ever since he's had kind of a closet fascination with the subject, hence him turning up at my talk in Costa Mesa a couple of years ago. So I think a lot of it, Goggs, is experiential. If people don't experience it, if you don't get stung by a scorpion, you don't give them any minds. If you don't get bit by a rattlesnake or eaten by a lion or mauled by one, you're not going to have any interest in these things, except maybe peripherally you might consider as entertainment or whatever. So that may explain part of it. But I think a lot of people really have their head in the sands when it comes to things that rock and change, potentially change their reality view. It calls into question their spiritual life, their belief systems, the things that are tangible that they can rely on and hold on to. If these things are rocked and called into question, or maybe don't fully explain experiences that they have, then they tend to wake up and start paying attention. So that's my little rant, and I'm done.
So, Chris, this coming week, you're going to be recording, or one of those responsible for the recording of the video images of the citizen hearing on disclosure. This is going to be Monday, April 29th through Thursday, May 3rd in Washington, D.C. And if you're interested in learning more about what it's about, you can go ahead and check citizenshearing.org. Once again, that's citizenshearing.org. It'll feature a lot of the famous guiding lights in the UFO field, citizenshearing.org. And we hope, Chris, to have a few guests on the show who will reflect the content and maybe give us some fascinating new insights, right?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, reconnecting with some old friends. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting exercise, I think. Again, I'm not sure exactly what Stephen Bassett hopes to accomplish with this, maybe inspire Congress to do the real thing. That, to me, is a pipe dream. This is about a third rail a subject as there has ever been. We'll see. I'm sure I'll be able to collect a couple of interested guests for a Paracast episode about this subject, and I look forward to it. It's going to be fun, and I get a chance to visit my old friend Ray Stanford, who's just a few minutes outside of the Beltway. I'm going to be able to spend a whole day with Ray prior to the to the load-in for the event at the press club there. I'm going to try to twist his arm to kind of pony up some cool stuff for everybody and put the Boo Birds back on their heels a little bit and back in their seats.
That sounds like fun. Goggs, thank you so much for sitting in with us.
Hey, no worries, anytime.
Very good. Want to tell everybody that you can find more of what Chris O'Brien does at OurStrangePlanet.com. That's OurStrangePlanet.com. Still undergoing renovation, and you'll soon be able to order his books online. That should be taken care of in a very short period of time. You can find us on Twitter, where we are known as, what else? The Paracast. We are the Paracast on Twitter. There are 2 Paracast fan clubs on Facebook, and one day we'll figure out how to integrate them, or go to our web portal, theparacast.com. That is theparacast.com. And also you can check out our other radio show about personal technology called The Tech Night Owl Live. So, Chris, Goggs, thank you both for making this a fun session.
Hey, thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah, it was good. Good having you on again, Goggs. Onwards and upwards.
The Paracast, featuring Gene Steinberg and Christopher O'Brien, is a copyrighted presentation of Making the Impossible, Incorporated. Tune in next week for a new adventure in The Paracast.